Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, July 15th, special meeting. Let's open and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, good evening, commissioners and everyone watching at home, online, or via Zoom. So what we're going to do this evening, we'll go over a few things for procedure ahead of time. We'll start with the roll call of the commissioners. Commissioner Khoury. Here. Commissioner LeConte. Here. He's here. He's via Zoom. Commissioner D'Aquila. Here. Commissioner Silber. Here. Commissioner Cinto. He's here. Commissioner Prush is here. And I am here. Thank you. Okay, so we are here tonight. We'll read it in a second for what's being referred to as the mall application file 2004, 5065, and 5085 Main Street. So there's a couple things I'm going to go over first for everybody in attendance and watching and joining us. And then Attorney Cordone is going to go over a few legal points for this evening. So one of the questions was, why the special meeting? And it was very important to everybody here that with the importance of this application and the length of time that it was going to take to go over all the details properly, that it should have its own meeting. So that is the reason for the special meeting, so proper attention could be paid to it. So, and it was also very important, and I'd like to thank all the commissioners that are here, and especially the IT staff for Town Hall, Bill Chin and his group, and our public television and the high school for all the work that they did to be able to coordinate for the first time a live meeting and a Zoom meeting at the same time. It was a lot of work, and Bill, we thank you very much for that. So we're here to review this application, and one of the things that we're going to clarify, and I wanted to make sure everybody understands, we're here tonight to talk about an application that is being made to the town towards a regulation that already exists. So this regulation is already on the books from 2018 that was passed. There are commissioners here that were also on the board then, the commission then. Some people voted for it, some people voted against it, but it passed. It is now a part of the Trumbull regulations. So what's going on this evening is this application is the project being put forward in coordination to be judged against by this commission doesn't meet the regulations that are already on the books. So with that being said, we also want to talk about the municipal process. For those of you that are watching via Zoom and are going to participate with the public portion when it comes time for the public to speak, there's the way to electronically raise your hand, which we will go in more detail when we get to that. But for those people at home who are participating by watching via social media and Trumbull Public Television, please understand that any comment on social media is not part of the public record, will not be recognized, and not be read. The only participation for this planning and zoning application has to take place at the municipal process inside the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. And it's 2020, we're going through a pandemic, and we now have rules that were changed that allow electronic participation via Zoom. So that's also what's taking place this evening. Unfortunately, we have out in the world some misinformation, some disinformation, and some people trying to understand the process, which is why at the beginning we talked about this application is in reference to an attempt to be approved or judged against a regulation that already exists. So what we're going to do this evening is go over the entire plan. It is a very large plan. There are a lot of details. There are a lot of folks to talk about each one of the subjects that we have, and we are not going to be done until we've gone over all the details. So for those watching and those here, We are going to try and cap this at about 3 hours just for this evening's meeting, and then we will continue on with a subsequent meeting. So at this time, I'm going to ask Attorney Cordone to go over some of the legal points for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm James Cordone, one of the town attorneys, and this is the July 15th, 2020 special meeting of the Trumbull Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm just making a few statements for the record. Pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order 7B and Executive Order 7I, this meeting is being conducted by video conference and teleconference over the internet and/or the telephone. The applicant is here in part, and the commission are also here in part in person and are appropriately socially distanced. Access and participation for the public or other interested parties is provided only by video conference and teleconference, by the internet and the telephone. And that is also in compliance with the governor's executive orders. As the chairman stated, public comment will be made during the public comment section, and that will be by Zoom video or telephone when you are able to electronically raise your hands, and there will be further instructions given at that time. The agenda was posted on the Trumbull Town website 24 hours in advance of this meeting. Materials that the applicant has presented and the application were posted 24 hours in advance of this meeting on the town website. I would ask all commissioners and participants to remember to please identify yourself before speaking for the benefit of those who might be listening only by phone. And I would ask the chairman to make sure that all votes are conducted by a roll call vote. Finally, I would advise the public that, and all parties, that this meeting is being recorded. To echo the chairman, we'd like to thank the Board of Education, custodial staff, and security staff, Lara Walden, Katie Dunn with Trumbull TV, Everett Rendy, who's helping with the audio. Special thanks to Rob Labrandy and Linda Finger in the P&Z office for a tremendous amount of work, and especially thanking again Mr. Bill Chin for all of his efforts on behalf of the town of Trumbull as our IT director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to read the application as it was presented. And as we have begun in the past, we are going to begin with the staff report, which will frame the application for us. And in the staff report, as we have been accustomed, we get the both planning and engineering and building, all of the details that we need for the support and or anything that needs to be addressed and followed through on from our position for this particular application. So right now, we are going to call Agenda 1, 5065 and 5058 Main Street. The applicants are K&K Developers Incorporated, Trumbull Shopping Center Number 2, LLC, and WEA Connecticut Houses, LLC, are requesting a special permit with a site plan to allow a proposed 260-unit multifamily residential community and associated site improvements pursuant to Article 2, Section 3.4 of the Town of Trumbull Zoning Regulations, file number 2004. So, Mr. Labrandy, if you would please present your staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the application in front of you today is, as Chairman stated, an application for a special permit and site plan for a proposed 260-unit multifamily. For a 260-unit multifamily residential community and associated community development and associated site improvements. This application yesterday was approved by the Trumbull Police Commission. So it is in front of the Trumbull Zoning Commission. The applicant did receive approval from the WPCA. As no variances are needed, and there are no wetlands on the site, the application does not require zoning board of appeals or any wetlands agency. We did receive a letter from our Metropolitan Council of Governments, so stated that this application does not have any regional impact. The site itself is located in the mixed-use development district.
It's stated no wetlands on site. It is 7 acres. The proposed development contains 5 buildings, 260 units, and 500 parking spaces. And if you're reading my staff report, the next section is going over the regulations that were approved in 2018. As you recall, this regulation was approved and the zone change was approved to allow these regulations to be incorporated on this site. So if we just go over the proposed, the purpose statement for this regulation for the MDD zone is threefold. One, to facilitate an appropriate mix of commercial, retail, residential, entertainment, and dining uses in a location close to a limited access highway or arterial road. Two, create an environment that is comfortable and interesting to local residents and visitors as a place to live, play, shop, work, and socialize. And three, to ensure the continued vitality and viability of a large-scale retail spaces by the introduction of compatible and appropriate uses that also maintain the integrity of nearby neighborhoods. So the next page of my staff report discusses that over time, I had an air photo from 1970 and an air photo from 1990. And then at the end of my staff report, it shows another air photo from the current phase of how the mall over time has purchased properties in that neighborhood. At the time of 1970, there was about 30 residential single-family dwellings in that 7-acre site. And then, as stated, over time, the mall purchased it for more parking. The next page just goes over the bulk requirements of that regulation, of what's required. So, section 3.4.4, special permitted uses. They are color coded. So yellow saying that there should be discussion, and the discussion was that I did not see a floor plan, a designed layout, but as of right now, the applicant has submitted a designed layout of the 1 and 2 bedroom units. Other than that, the applicant did go by the regulations for allowing the total number of units within the zone and the square footage per unit between 800 and 1,400 square feet. And as stated, no dens, office, or separate rooms would be allowed. 3.4.6 talks about the bulk requirements, which the applicant does is correct. Just where my notes are, I just would like to add that should be changed to 260 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms, 64 1-bedroom, and 196 2-bedroom units. So that may be a discussion between the commissioners as to this number of bedrooms. 3.4.7, the provision for vehicles, stated in the regulations, it's 1.9 spaces per unit. So a requirement is a total of 494 spaces. They've provided 501 spaces, including the garage spaces, and they've also put landscaping of 1 tree per 20 off-street parking spaces for interior trees shown. The signage, I did speak to the applicant. There is no wall signage or building signage as of right now. We did discuss the entrance signage to the development from Main Street that will probably require another site plan for them to come back and correct, because as of right now, that sign is too close, so it wouldn't meet setback requirements. So they may be able to remove the signage and come back for a special permit again, or resubmit their application. I did speak to our landscaping, consultant here in town, Dimitri Paris. We did go over the landscaping plan. There was a few comments that he stated that we should discuss when the landscape architect presents the application. Just nothing too extreme, just the change of a few trees along the road for other trees that are on site. Some of the vegetation may be a little too close to the road, so it won't impact the sidewalks or the street. So just minor modifications that he requested that be made. There was a traffic report done. As we all know, that if this application is approved, they're required to go to OSTA, the Office of State Traffic Authority, to review the entrances and exits from the main, from the state road. From the traffic study stated that there was 1,415 daily trips estimated, 40 trips during the weekday AM, 110 trips during the weekday PM, and 100 trips Saturday midday. This is where really we should have the traffic consultant present his findings. I know there was some concerns about the turning lanes to and from the development that should be discussed. Also, discussion as to the comments of the police commission last night. Also, when were these traffic numbers taken as well too? That's what should be, was it during our pandemic or was it during when we were having peak traffic? I did give a 24 list questions and comments to the applicant. They did answer them. I believe the commissioners should have gotten an email with those comments. I don't know if you want me to go through all of them.
I think that you're highlighting everything very well. I think that the applicant, as part of their presentation, should address your questions and the answers that they gave. We're going to have to hear that from them anyway. There's no need for you to duplicate that now. We have that, we see that, and the public will be able to see and hear the question and answer from the applicant themselves. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm just going to skip to what our plan of conservation and development says to pertaining to this area in town. As we know, this area is considered a gateway into Trumbull. I believe it's on page 22 of our POCD. There's a map, and it designates this as a great gateway. On page 61 of our POCD, it says that Trumbull has been and will continue to be a community whose housing stock consists primarily of single-family detached dwellings. However, the age composition of the community is changing, and so the housing needs its residents are changing as well. In the last 30 years, Trumbull has addressed the need and demand for alternative housing choices by updating its zoning regulations to allow multifamily, age-restricted housing and accessory apartments. Prior to 1984, the only alternative housing opportunities were at Stern Village and St. Joseph's Manor. Residential development can also provide economic benefits. Placing residents within walking distance to commercial centers provides new customers without traffic impacts. Combining housing and businesses also helps create more vibrant and active places. On page 55, it also discusses Lower Main Street in particular. Along Lower Main Street, economic opportunities and livable residential neighborhoods should not only coexist, but support one another. New moderate density residential or professional office development can provide an attractive streetscape or gateway into Trumbull, which in turn enhances the quality of life for the neighbors in the immediate area. So in conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission in 2018, as stated before, developed and approved zoning regulations for the mixed-use development district and allowed a zone change for the mall and the potential residential development to be included in this zone. The Planning and Zoning staff hired Stantec to give a third-party zoning and development review concerning the mall. This gave the staff, commission, and the public an update on the status of malls while focusing on the Trumbull Mall and if housing is a viable option. We have shared articles from around the state and the country as how other malls are moving toward a residential component. As web-based shopping has become so dominant, mall traffic has been on the decline for years. The idea is that if you live near the mall, you are surrounded by an environment that includes live, work, and play, which is incorporated in the statement of purpose for the zone. Create an environment that is comfortable and interesting to local residents and visitors as a place to live, play, shop, work, and socialize. The question is that, does this development meet that goal? One idea that the commission should discuss is the connection from this development to the mall. Will the walkway be utilized by the residents? Does it give a feeling of convenience and safety? Does this show a usable, positive connection of uses within the zone? Also, I'd like to state that we do have letters that we'd like to submit to the public and for and against this application, and we do have a letter from the Economic and Community Development Commission supporting this project. Thank you.
Fill this one out. Is that better? There you go. Thank you, Rob. We will address the letters of support and those that are against at the end. I just want to see Commissioner LeConte at home on Zoom or any of the commissioners here. Does anybody have any questions about the process so far? I don't want to get really into the application, but anybody have any questions before the applicant begins his presentation? No? Okay. This time, name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Knopf. I'm an attorney with an office at 147 Broad Street in Milford, Connecticut, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Trumbull Shopping Center No. 2 LLC, WEA Connecticut Houses LLC, and K&K Developers, Inc. Trumbull Shopping Center 2 is the owner of the mall property, identified as 5065 Main Street. WEA is the owner of the 10-acre parcel for the proposed residential development at 5085 Main Street. Both Trumbull Shopping Center No. 2 and WEA are both URW or Westfield entities. And K&K is the contract tenant and purchaser of the WEA or the Main Street parcel. All three entities are applicants for the proposed 260-unit multifamily community to be located on the Main Street parcel and the associated improvements on the mall parcel. The applications are submitted pursuant to the mixed-use design district regulations in Article 2, Section 3.4, and the special permit regulations found in Article 15. As we will be discussing this evening, and as set forth in our narrative and in our compliance memo, the application complies with all applicable zoning regulations. As an aside, after the approval of the mixed-use design district regulations in 2018, all the residential parcels along Stewart and Walburn were consolidated into one 10-acre parcel that complies with the minimum acre size or minimum lot size of 7 acres. So there are a total of 2 parcels in the MDD zone, what we will refer to as the mall parcel and as the Main Street or the residential parcel. Before we begin, I first want to thank the full Trumbull staff for its diligence and ingenuity in creating the social distance hearing, particularly Bill Chin and his colleagues. We understand that this is no small undertaking, and we're deeply appreciative of all the efforts taken to ensure a transparent and robust hearing in a manner that is fully protective of both the process and the public. Second, on the topic of notices, the governor's executive orders offer the opportunity to relax or modify the standard notice requirements, including newspaper notices and mail notices. We did not avail ourselves of those opportunities. We published notice of this hearing twice in accordance with the statutes, and we mailed notice to all property owners within 250 feet of both parcels in accordance with the regulations, and certificates of mailing of those mail notices have been provided. In addition, notice of the public hearing has also been posted on the town website, and all documents associated with this application have been posted as well more than 24 hours in advance of this hearing. We have provided hard copies of several items this evening, but this was simply a convenience for all of you, and all the materials that you have in hard copy and all the materials that you'll be seeing this evening on the Zoom or in here in person were on the website no later than yesterday afternoon. The greater bulk of the materials for the application, both hard copies and electronic versions, were provided on May 28th, well over a month ago. So there's been plenty of time for those items to be reviewed by the public or anyone else. On the topic of notices, while not technically a notice, we also did conduct a neighborhood Zoom meeting 1 week ago this evening. Invitations were mailed to all property owners within 250 feet of both properties, plus all homeowners east of the mall along Bonnie View and Bosford Place. Approximately 300 invitations went out, and we understand that those were forwarded to others via various platforms. We received 34 RSVPs, and there were anywhere between 25 to 40 members of the public on the call at any one time. The meeting was conducted generally in the same fashion as any land use public hearing has been since COVID, but with the added opportunity of the public to comment via the chat function or to speak directly. So like tonight, the public was muted until after the presentation was concluded and all the written questions were addressed. The discourse was candid, respectful, and we believe very informative. Third, we also want to extend our appreciation to other town staff and its thorough review of the application materials and meeting with our team. We took to heart all the comments we heard from everyone, and of course, your emergency service departments in particular. After making revisions to the plans in response to those comments, we received favorable comments from the EMS Chief Lee Goodman, Fire Marshal Megan Murphy, and last night we received approval from the Trumbull Police Commission. The relevant letters are in the packet that you received this evening, also posted on the town website. We also received approval from the WPCA for our sewer connection, and we have no concerns with the comments that have been provided by your town engineer, Bill Moore. Next, beyond your own staff approvals, we also received a favorable recommendation from the Trumbull Chamber of Commerce and a favorable letter from MetroCog recognizing that the application is consistent with your POCD. Both of those letters are also in your packet. And the final items I want to bring to your attention in your packet are the following. A project narrative, which was submitted at the time of the application, which details our compliance with the MDD regulations, a memo responding to Rob LaBrandy's staff memo, a memo demonstrating compliance with your special permit regulations, and of course you have the site plans with the zoning table that also demonstrates compliance with all bulk requirements of the MDD. Obviously, compliance with the zoning regulations is the basis for every decision made by this or any zoning commission. But we want to specifically focus on the compliance in this instance because of the painstaking process the commission took to pass the MDD regulations. You will all recall that we opened the hearing in May of 2018 and the vote was not until October. During that time, the regulations changed considerably while we addressed every concern voiced at that time. Number of units went from 580 to 260. We talked about minimum lot size, staggered building setbacks, minimum unit size, and even whether there could be dens. There cannot. All those issues and more were scrutinized throughout the hearing process, and in every case, we accommodated the preferences of the town and this commission. And now, in every case, we meet or exceed every applicable regulation. And in doing so, the application is even consistent with the advice provided to you in 2018 by your third-party consultant, Stantec. So for the format this evening, our goal was to be as comprehensive yet as concise as possible. After me, we have 7 speakers, 2 of whom will be remote. First will be Leonard Glickman, who is the principal of Rose Equities and K&K, who will be remote from California. Stephen Fleur, who is the Vice President of Development for URW Westfield. Scott Leventhal, who is the principal with Garden Homes and K&K. John Schmitz, who is our professional engineer with BL Companies. Dave Minnow will be participating remotely. He is our architect from Minnow Wasco Architects. Wayne Violet is here, our landscape architect from BL, and Mike Dion, our traffic engineer, also from BL. And so rather than take the time of introducing each person, we'll have everyone queued up, ready to go as soon as one person finishes. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I want to turn over to Leonard Glickman, who is joining us from his home in Los Angeles. Leonard?
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you, John. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the P&Z Commission. My name is Leonard Glickman, and I am a principal in Rose Equities, and together with my partner, Scott Leventhal of Garden Homes, we are the applicants for the residences at Maine. Before I begin, I would also like to extend our deep appreciation to the board and town staff for organizing tonight's meeting. I know you have made every effort to ensure that both the applicant and the public have full participation. My relationship with Garden Homes goes back, and its principles goes back over 65 years. Individually and collectively, we have been owner builders of real estate for that period of time. We call ourselves owner builders because first and foremost, we are family businesses. We have a long-term generational outlook. Everything we do is vertically integrated, from development to management. Most is done in-house. Having a long-term generational outlook, we do not just build a community, we become part of the community. Occasionally, we do sell a property here or there, but for the most part, we develop and manage all our properties for decades. Being long-term owners, we look to invest in towns and cities which have a strong sense of community and strong community participation. We always ask ourselves, and in this case, Trumbull, will Trumbull be as good, if not better, 30 to 40 years from today? Because we're going to own it for that long. We say definitely yes. And we are here tonight and to provide you with our thoughts for our plan and to show you that we're willing to put family money into this opportunity. As you may recall, we were before the board with URW some 2 years ago. We came away from this meeting with a zoning ordinance, which in essence is a roadmap for how to proceed. If I may basically say, we were told to come back, color within the lines, and your approvals will be secured. What we have tonight is to follow both the letter of the law and its heart. We have designed a luxury residential community for renters of choice, not renters of need. Our primary targets are single families, single individuals, empty nesters. They are here with average incomes of approximately $150,000. Our physical plant needs to match the expectations of our residences, and it does. As you will see, our presentation tonight is based upon facts. While we feel that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, no one is entitled to their own set of facts. We are a fact-based organization and a fact-based presentation. We hope that you will see that our presentation more than matches the expectation of the ordinances that were previously presented. And with that, I'll give it back to John.
Our next presenter is Stephen Fleur, Vice President of Development for URW. I'd also like to note that while he's not presenting, Patrick Madden, who is the General Manager of the mall, is here this evening as well. Stephen?
Good evening. Thanks for that, John. Again, my name is Stephen Fleur. I have offices at One World Trade Center, 46th floor in New York City. I oversee development for the East Coast for URW. So that's Connecticut to Florida, everything in between, and also out to Chicago. And I'm pleased to be here tonight to speak in support of this application and want to talk a few minutes about the importance of this project to the future of Westfield Trumbull. Westfield, since 2008, has become much more focused on how to add mixed use across our portfolio as a way to strengthen and better our retail assets. Certainly with the effects of COVID and where we are today, this imperative has become that much more important that we solidify our properties to be the choice, not only for places for people to come and shop, but for people to come to live, to work, to play. Concentration and differentiation are crucial to the future health and prosperity of our assets. And in turn, that health and prosperity feeds back to the communities that we have long enjoyed calling home. To be clear, from a site planning perspective, mixed use does not necessarily mean multiple uses in every building, and it doesn't necessarily mean buildings on top of each other. But on a site-wide basis, adding in complementary uses in a smart and connected way strengthen the mall and make it an amenity for the built-in community. It's easily accessible by foot a few minutes from their front door, while also ensuring that the community also feels the privacy that we all crave from our living spaces. This project provides what we need to take the first step with Westfield Trumbull. High quality apartments, providing a place to call home for working professionals, or at the other end of the spectrum, for those that call this area home but no longer want the burden and care of having their own home. Those that want to be able to walk to amenities around them for dining, shopping, and recreating. Those are exactly the kind of customers that we want at Westfield Trumbull. We want them every day to come to our stores, to come to our restaurants, to come to our fitness centers. The location of the project in relation is very similar to other projects that Westfield has done or has in planning today, and we focused on overall campus connectivity. In this instance, the developer is creating a walking path through a nice landscaped area to connect directly to the center. The walk is no longer than what it would be from parking in the parking lot today and walking over to the center. Beyond the project, I just want to highlight a few examples from across the country, both in Westfield and outside, that have similar layouts and adjacencies for your consideration. Westfield UTC, which is in La Jolla, California, we built an apartment tower on the periphery of the project in a very similar location to Trumbull. The mall in Columbia, I think, is an excellent example to look at here on the East Coast in Columbia, Maryland. It's almost an identical layout to what's being considered here for Trumbull. Springfield Town Center in Springfield, Virginia, again, very similar. Westfield Garden State Paramus, not that far from here in Paramus, New Jersey, has a very similar layout. That application is coming forward. And one final one in California, Bella Terra, which is in Huntington Beach. The layout and setup is not unique to what is being proposed here, but what we're finding is working very well in the marketplace. It speaks to the consumers who want to live there, and it speaks to our retailers that we bring to them a built-in community that are going to help activate and continue to invigorate the assets. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have here this evening. And as John mentioned, Pat Madden is here as well. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, members of the public. My name is Scott Loventhal. I'm a principal of Garden Homes and K&K Developers, the applicant here this evening. I have more than 25 years experience in the identification, acquisition, entitlement, development, and management of communities exactly as we are presenting to you this evening. As my partner Leonard Glickman mentioned earlier this evening, we are a privately held development company, and we invest our own capital in these projects. We thoroughly review our site selection process through a series of analyses that we complete in order to ensure that the project is a success for both the community within which we will develop the project and for our own account. With that being said, Bill, if you could please just pull up slide number 5 from the BL Company's presentation. Thank you. As Attorney John Nuff indicated earlier this evening, I participated in the hearings in connection with the zone amendment, creating the MDD amendment that allowed for our 260 residences at Main that we're presenting here this evening. More than 2.5 years ago, when we proposed this project, we considered something grander and recognized that this was simply not something that Trumbull would consider at the time. So what we did was focus on our 260 units and prepared a very detailed fiscal impact analysis in 2018 to support our application. The slide that is before you, just for orientation's sake, our approximately 10-acre parcel is located to the west of Main Street and to the east of the mall on a parcel that at one time contained as many as 30 single-family homes, and as recent as several years ago contained as few as a handful of single-family homes. That parcel was acquired by URW Westfield and ultimately was considered for retail, as large big box retail was at the time considered and a consideration in connection with malls throughout the country. Those large big box retail opportunities did not present themselves, and URW Westfield recognized the opportunity to create the true shop, work, live, play environment. Similarly, Garden Homes had a similar vision for the site. What we did was thoughtfully consider the zone change amendment and its terms, and over the last 2 years, prepared a detailed site plan application, taking into consideration each of the components of the MDD zone amendment as we considered over the last 2 years this site layout that's in front of you. What we ultimately came to the conclusion was that a project that complements the mall, but ultimately can remain independent of the mall, is what is in our best interest for the mall, for Trumbull, and for the residents that will ultimately reside in our community, to create a comforting environment where those that choose to take advantage of the opportunity to conveniently access the mall, its retail, its experiential services, and its restaurants can do so. And for those that do not, they have a warm and secure and comfortable living environment that's convenient to the Merritt Parkway, convenient to local rail, and ultimately convenient to what we expect will be our target market, convenient to those services, houses of worship, and educational opportunities that those residents may have had as they raised their families in Trumbull over the last umpteenth years. The project consists of 5 four-story elevator service buildings with architecture that complements the New England charm of Trumbull. As Rob Labrandy stated earlier today, Trumbull has the reputation as the gateway to New England, and we expect this project to be the gateway to Trumbull.
All right.
We have a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom residences, which will contain upscale interior finishes, which include individual garages and storage room for residences to provide a transition from the anticipated market that I just described of existing Trumbull and local area residences who are living in single-family homes and seeking to downsize, along with the needs of young professionals who are looking to reside in Trumbull, either because of previous roots in Trumbull or because they find Trumbull desirable, just as all of you this evening have. We believe that this project meets the zone change amendment in all regards, and the professionals that I'll have here this evening are going to describe those in great detail. As I said earlier, we identify projects in communities that we look ahead, and as Leonard Glickman also stated, we want to look ahead and see where that community will be years down the road, because our expectation is that Trumbull will be as good or better a place by virtue of our housing, providing a housing type that is a void in the marketplace that currently exists for empty nesters and young professionals. I wanted to just describe, because I alluded to it earlier, the fiscal impact analysis that we completed in connection with our application. It is expected based on the facts. The facts are based on valuations, based on rents and income, and based on significant detail that's in the fiscal impact analysis, that we expect real property value to exceed $48 million, personal property to exceed $7.3 million in valuation, thus generating real property taxes in excess of $1.2 million. After consideration of municipal services, school impacts, and the like, we expect that our project can generate a net positive municipal revenue of approximately $900,000. This is not opinion, this is based on fact, and you will find those facts in our fiscal impact analysis. In terms of the resident that will live here, as we indicated, with 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, we anticipate approximately 400 to 500 total residents. How do we come to those conclusions? We have 75% of our units as 2 bedroom and 25% as 1 bedroom. In most instances, and I think apropos to today, with regard to residents who are now identifying the opportunity or quite frankly being forced to work from home, a 2 bedroom apartment may frankly only contain 1 resident or 2 residents. In the case of empty nesters, the 2nd bedroom is used for a home office. It's used for a television room. It's used for, in many instances with couples that are aging in place. It's used where couples, because of medical conditions or otherwise, do not sleep in the same bedroom and ultimately remain a couple but want 2 bedrooms. So more often than not, our 2 bedroom apartments contain no more than 2 residents. Our 1 bedroom apartments may also contain one or 2 residents. And yes, of course, occasionally there will be children that live in a community like this. But as was made perfectly clear to us in the zone change amendment, based on the fiscal impact that we provided in 2018 as a preliminary fiscal impact, we concluded that with primarily empty nesters and young professionals, while there may be some children, by virtue of the fact that we have not provided playgrounds and we have not provided open space, we've created a pedestrian-enhanced community that I call a town center style. And it's a town center style in the sense that our buildings orient themselves inward towards a central rotundo and our pool and our 4,400 square foot clubhouse, which becomes the center of activity. Yes, we're in a pandemic, and we all hope that certainly we come out of the pandemic in short order, thus allowing those community facilities to be enjoyed as they have been in the past, and we have every reason to believe will be in the future. By virtue of that, we haven't presented the opportunity for an environment that would be conducive to young children. We're elevator-style buildings with common interior halls, and as such, these are not locations, as we described earlier and Leonard Glickman indicated, these are renters by choice, not renters by need. When we say renters by choice, they are choosing to live within our community. And if their lifestyles change after the conclusion of the term of their lease in a rental situation, they have an opportunity to move to either a garden-style apartment community, a townhome, or a single-family home where they can enjoy the opportunities that if they are a young professional and they ultimately are married and have children, that will ultimately lead to those enhancements. So we have estimated, based on a number of studies, both from your school district, as well as empirical data that's provided to us through a variety of studies that are in our fiscal impact report, that we expect to generate approximately 27 school-age children. A school-age child is defined between the ages of kindergarten and 12th grade. And based on what I described earlier, where young professionals may have a child in their residence, by the time that child is ready to enter the school district, that couple is generally ready to move on to a larger living environment. And thus, this community would not remain satisfactory to them as a housing choice, not a housing need. Should they choose to remain, that's where our numbers of 27 comes from. We also find that through divorcees and other situations along the like where a family household may be disrupted, that there are often spouses that want to remain in a community where the rest of their family unit may have lived or previous family unit might live, and they may also have some children. But notwithstanding, that's where we've concluded our 27 children. I will also tell you, we've studied this right up until the last few weeks, and we've been watching very closely a new community in Trumbull, which is called 10 Trumbull. 10 Trumbull currently has 60 units that are occupied. There are 3 school-age children. 3. If we do the math, our 27 number seems about right. So I also wanted to make sure that while you understood a little bit about who we are, I said who I am with my experiences, but Garden Homes, as we indicated earlier, is a privately held development company. While we are based in Short Hills, New Jersey, our reach of development goes from coast to coast, but in particular, we have 6 communities in Connecticut with over 1,400 total units, housing that is exactly consistent with what we're showing you here this evening. Our most recent community in Simsbury is completing its leasing process as we speak, and all of the same demographics that I described earlier are only amplified here because Simsbury is a slightly lower density project with more open space. Notwithstanding, those communities in Hamden, Simsbury, Manchester, Windsor, Connecticut, and Bloomfield total our 1,400 units, so we certainly have experience in the local market. Lastly, I'll come back later this evening because we did submit, and since the chairman has asked that we place on the record responses to Rob's questions, I'll come back later. And if any of our professionals have not responded to those questions that Rob posed, I will be happy to answer all of those questions because many of them were operational in nature. It also should be noted, and I don't want to take away anything from our civil engineer and our traffic engineer, based on the thoughtful discussions with your EMS, your fire, and your police departments, we've taken the opportunity to gate the community. When I say gate, we will have access cards. They will not be manned gates. They will be gates at each of our entrances. So thus, the community can remain secure and comfortable without the consideration at times when the mall is busy of any pass-through traffic that might look to avoid a traffic signal. They won't have that opportunity here. So we're a gated community. We're also a community that will have state-of-the-art access controls within our buildings. While we will not be lobby attended, our buildings will have a 24-hour manager on site, daytime manager and concierge to oversee programming in our 4,400 square foot clubhouse and our outdoor pool. And each of our buildings will be access secured with an intercom system, a color video monitor that will allow residents to securely allow their visitors to access the buildings. We also will have a package room. These are things that many years ago we didn't think about. Today, we recognize the need with Amazon and with UPS, the need for package rooms. So we have a vibrant clubhouse where residents will visit on a daily basis to pick up packages. Mail is delivered to each of the individual lobbies and has been reviewed by your postmaster in terms of its acceptability. And yes, sure.
Phone isn't. There you go. I have a question. Do you want any questions that come up now with what you're speaking on? Or do you want to get through your presentation and then take questions after?
I'm concluding my presentation, and I think John Schmitz is going to come up from BL to get into a lot more detail on the site plan. So I think that it may be best served, assuming that you're comfortable with that, Mr. Chairman, that I allow each of our speakers, as I conclude now, I allow each of our speakers to make their presentation, and then whatever questions they have not answered,
Yeah.
whatever questions come up, I'm
There's-
here, so I'll
I
defer
have-
to you.
I have deep questions about the gating that you just brought up.
Mhm.
And you tell me whether you want to discuss it now or you want somebody else to address it or how you want to work.
It may be best served because we may be in a position where between John Schmitz and Mike Dion, our traffic engineer, they may answer some of those questions that you have. And if then they're operational and they're business related, I certainly can come back and answer them. If there's anything in particular that's just eating at you that you'd like to offer as a question,
no,
I'd be happy to answer it.
It's the queue problem. So if you're going to have a gate on the Main Street entrance and somebody needs their card and the visitors show up there, that's an issue. That's a queuing issue onto Main Street.
We've
So
accounted for
one of
that,
the,
Mr. Chairman.
you have what?
We have accounted for that. And I think that it might be best served that John and Mike describe the bypass lane and the ability for a car that is not able to access the gate to pull to the side at each of our gates, a delivery truck that's not able to access the gate. So if you'd like, I think that John and Mike will be able to describe those for you. And then I can certainly come back from an operational perspective. But we've certainly taken into consideration the queuing concerns at each of the access points to provide for an appropriate bypass with regard to those gates. And I think John probably is best served describing the details of that.
Yeah, that's a big issue. So we're going to have to get into some depth when you choose.
Sure. So with that being said, it might be a good opportunity to transition, really to thank you for the opportunity. I will be here throughout the presentation, and at some point, I think it's probably best served from a business perspective, a business questions perspective, that I come back at the end and try and tie those all together. So with that being said, John Schmitz is our next witness from BL Companies, who is our overall project civil engineer. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Schmitz. I'm a civil engineer, project manager with BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. Tonight, I'm going to address some of the engineering technical aspects of the project. I'll walk through the site plan with you. We'll discuss the grading and drainage and some of the utilities and things of that nature. So, Bill, if we could get slide number 1, the site plan, I'll just walk you through the layout. So as indicated, the project includes 5 separate buildings. You can see the layout in front of you on the slide. The project is bisected basically by 2 roads. There's a north-south road that runs through the center of it and an east-west road that runs left to right. The center road basically coincides with where Walburn is today. So today there's the existing roads, Walburn and Stewart, are still in place. They haven't been removed. The roads are there, all the houses are gone, all the utilities are still in place. So what we've done is to develop the site to work around those roadways so that we could maintain the utilities that are in those roadways. So for access to the site, we've taken the existing curb cut, existing access at Walburn from Main Street and turned it into a limited access driveway. And what that means is we're going to allow lefts in and rights in, but we're going to restrict lefts out. So you would not be able to take a left out onto Main Street and go toward the Parkway, you'd be forced to take a right. So it's right outs only. We've modified the driveway there as well as the island there to prohibit left-hand turns. The second means of access to the site would be along the mall entry drive, which is at the bottom of the page. Visitors or tenants would be able to access the site from the south entrance drive, which is a right in, right out only driveway. That driveway, because the mall entry drive is a boulevard style, you can only have right in, right out, and that's what we propose at that location. The third access point is along the west side of the development, which attaches to the mall's ring road. That is a full access driveway, meaning lefts in, lefts out, as well as right-ins, right-outs. Everything can be accommodated at that interchange. Also at that intersection, we propose a pedestrian crosswalk to get to the mall proper. We propose new sidewalks. That crosswalk will include rapid flash beacons. You might hear a little bit more about that later. So when a pedestrian comes to that location, they can push the button and the beacons will flash, alerting traffic to know that pedestrians are crossing. The crosswalk will also be imprinted bituminous pavement, and it'll be colored, so there'll be a contrasting color for motorists to see. There's also going to be lighting at that location as well, where there's already lighting along the ring road and lighting to the mall itself. As discussed, the three entrances will be gated entries. The main entrance off of Main Street includes a pull-off area for a vehicle. So if a truck were to pull in there, they wouldn't block anyone else coming in. So there's two components to an entrance. There's a key card. There's each of the islands each of the entrances has a center median island, which includes a key card access where you can either swipe your card, the gates will open and you can enter, or you can call a tenant and they can open the gate for you. There is stacking for 3 vehicles at each of the entrances. So when you pull off the road, there's enough room for 3 cars to be stacked up at that keypad. And in all 3 of the instances, there's also a turnaround area. So if you tried to get in, if you were a visitor, somebody wasn't there, couldn't allow you to get in, you can make a U-turn and you can leave. So that's provided at all 3 entrances as well. With regards to the site, sure. Yeah, if you can zoom in, you could pick any of the 3.
The Main Street entrance as it approaches the roundabout. So I'm on now, right? So I'm going to have a few questions, I don't know whether your attorney knows this or not, but last November, I sold the 4,000 square foot house and downsized. I live in a gated community, so I understand the pros and cons, and which is why I'm going to have a lot of questions about the positives and negatives about that gates operation and the access. So do you have a cutoff there? I see the arrow facing one way and there's your pull-off. Can you show me on the screen where your pull-off is? It's 3 cars in from Main Street, right?
The end of that, so what we're looking at is the Main Street entrance, there's an island, the center green island. At the end of that island would be a post with a key card where you'd be able to access.
That close to Main Street?
That's about 60 feet off of Main Street. So Main Street is, again, the green stops at the property line. There's another 20 feet or so before you get to the edge of the road. So the gray that you're seeing colored there is the edge of the road today. So we'd be able to stack 3 cars in that space up to the post. And the gate isn't for another 50 feet or so further to the left.
You don't have the gate depicted on this picture.
I believe it is. It's a little tough to see. So if you were pulling in, there's a rectangle on the upper side of the driveway. That's where a truck could pull off to. And at the end of that, on the left hand, right, that's the rectangle where a truck could park
Right.
temporarily and unload if needed be. At the left hand side of that, there's a gate that would go across the road. Now, there would actually be two gates, one to enter, one to exit, with an opening of a few feet in between. We're not putting an island there. The gates, again, would open from either
So
side, left or right.
that shows a solid line from the end of the green all the way to that line, but you're saying there's going to be a break, but it's not depicted there?
No. I don't know if it's easy, I can point on the screen, but folks at home wouldn't be able to see it. Okay.
All right. So where's the break for them to come up? If they can't get in or the person they want to visit isn't home, so they'd have to back up into the queued traffic behind them. Oh, I thought you said it was at the end of the. So they'd be able to turn at the end of that green island? Okay.
And all three entrances are very similar in design, in that they allow 3 cars to stack up prior to getting to the entry gate. With regards to parking, well, let me just continue on a little bit. So there's parking basically scattered throughout the entire site. Based on the number of units, we have a total of requirement of 494 parking spaces required. We provide for 501 total parking spaces. There will be parking in three main locations. One would be the surface parking that you see. And you see the upper left, upper right, lower right, lower left, 4 areas of surface parking. And then there's also garage parking under each one of the buildings, or within each one of the buildings. There's 64 garage spaces spread out amongst the 5 buildings, and there's 437 surface parking spaces. That includes parking on the road. So the north-south road, the east-west road, there will be parallel on-street parking allowed. We anticipate that will mostly be used for visitor parking, but it's not going to be designated. But again, parking allowed in those areas. A center roundabout area, which is flush to allow emergency vehicles to go over it. It will be a designated imprint in the middle, but it will not be a raised island. What we've also done, while we're talking about the streetscape areas, is to include 5 fire lanes to allow for emergency vehicles to stop and have access to the buildings. And why we've done that is each of the buildings has a main lobby. The main lobby is actually accessed from the parking lot area of the side. So in this instance, the non-street side of the building would be where the lobby is located. However, there is a rear door, so you can access the lobby from either side of the building. It would be more convenient for the emergency access if there was an ambulance call or whatever. They could just come right in, pull up to the building, and enter the lobby from the back side directly from the parking space. Again, that's how the parking lays out overall for the site. We do have dumpster locations shown on the plan for each building. You'll notice that there's a blue rectangle on the yes, thank you. Yeah, it's just to the lower left of the traffic circle. That is the pool community area that is adjacent to the community building portion. That is known as Building 4. Building 4 includes residences, but it also includes the community building, as well as the pool, which again would be seasonal. That area will have a generator as well, so it will be can be used as a refuge in case there's a power outage. People can come down to that spot. Residents can come in and charge cell phones, use the building for that type of purpose in case there's a emergency such as a power outage. With regard to the grading and drainage, Bill, if you could go to slide number 3, I'll walk you through some of the items, what we've done here. So The site today slopes, the high point of the site is Main Street. Anyone who's ever been to the mall knows that when you drive down the mall entry from Main Street, you're basically going downhill. It's actually about a 45-foot drop from Main Street to the mall's ring road to the west side. So the property slopes pretty consistently from Main Street across the site. And then there's a hill that gets down to the mall ring road. You'll notice when you drive on the mall ring road, if you're going north towards LA Fitness, to your right, there's a wooded slope. That's where we'd be coming down the hill with one of our access points. So when we look at drainage in particular, what we do is try to mimic what's going on with existing drainage. We try to mimic the existing drainage patterns. We've submitted a full stormwater management report that goes into great depth and detail about how we analyze the stormwater. I'll just kind of briefly summarize what we did. Again, we looked at where the water is going today. There are three main drainage areas here. One area of the site currently drains down towards the mall ring road in the back on the left-hand side of the picture. The second is at the end of Stewart, which drains into an existing storm drain just uphill of our existing satellite parking area. And then the third area is to the mall's entry drive, which is by the southerly entrance. So there's three spots today which basically pick up the storm water, and we're going to use those in the future under the proposed condition to tie in the same locations so that we're maintaining the same drainage patterns overall. However, because we're adding impervious area to the site, we're increasing the amount of runoff. So what we do is we're required to detain that increase in runoff. We propose 3 detention systems. One is in the upper left-hand corner underneath the parking lot. The other will be in the lower left-hand corner. Again, underground system in the parking lot. Both those systems would be proposed to be a Coltech recharger type system, very similar to like septic system. It's a open system, open bottom and gravel. It's used to help infiltrate stormwater. So what we'll do is we collect water. We're holding our water quality volume and putting that water into the ground as infiltration. The third system is just to the north of the mall entry drive and just to the east of the southerly driveway. We propose a surface pond in that location. So we'll be collecting water there, detaining water, infiltrating water into that pond, and then again, discharging it into the existing system. I will note that all the systems that this site drains into today, currently owned by the mall, operated, maintained by the mall, all those systems combine and then discharge into Horse Tavern Brook, which is at the southerly end of the mall. Horse Tavern Brook runs directly into Bridgeport, just 100 feet or so off the property. But one of the things we do too when we're looking at stormwater is we're trying to treat that stormwater for water quality. And one of the things we look at, we base the design on the Connecticut Drainage Manual and the Stormwater Quality Manual, as well as the town standards for water quality. One of the things we need to meet is 80% total suspended solids. One of the ways we've done to meet that goal is to provide for hydrodynamic separators. So as the water is collected in catch basins throughout the property, and as you see on the slide, there's red lines. Those red lines depict some of the piping system that we have, the conveyance system, where we'll collect water from those catch basins. Each catch basin will be fitted with a 4-foot deep sump, which allows us to take out some of the larger particles from road sweeping, that sort of thing, as well as a hooded outlet. So if there was any trash, any garbage, it was collected into the runoff that got into the catch basin, that hooded outlet stops that from traveling downstream, and it catches it in the catch basin so it can't move. Water that runs further in the system, collected, runs through a hydrodynamic separator. Those are kind of a swirl concentrator, very common these days, and are shown to remove 80% of the total suspended solids in the flow. What we do is we put those systems just upstream of our detention, our infiltration system, so that we're taking out those sediment, those little fine particles, so they don't clog our system. So we put those in just upstream of that, found it to be very effective. The report also includes, the stormwater report we provided also includes an operation and maintenance schedule, because obviously in order for this stuff to be effective and be efficient, it needs to be maintained properly. So we provide a schedule in the report of how everything shall be maintained the frequency with which everything shall be cleaned and pumped out. And again, that's in the report. Also to note, due to the size of the development, we are required to submit to DEP for a general permit to discharge stormwater during the construction activity. So that's a permit that we'll be filing for, registering for prior to getting a building permit. That's got to be on file prior to starting construction. So we're also required to get that permit as well for this. With regards to utilities, I spoke a little bit about utilities. Again, they're already in the road in both right-of-ways. We have water, sewer, gas, storm. There's overhead power, electric, as well as telecommunications. Some of those utilities feed them all. We're not going to interrupt any of them. We're going to use them. They're there, and we've again worked around them. We do plan to take the overhead power. The poles will disappear, so we'll take the overhead power as well as telecommunications. All those lines will now be underground. We'll put conduits under the ground, so there won't be any more utility poles in these areas. However, again, we'll maintain the sewer lines, the storm, water, et cetera. As Attorney Nuff noted, we've already been to the Trumbull WPCA. I think we've had 2 meetings with them. They approved the sanitary sewer connections. We'll be maintaining the existing sewer lines that leave the west ends of Stewart and Walburn, flow into the mall's property, and then again from there also flowing southwards into Bridgeport. We'll be maintaining all those utilities. With regard to erosion control, I don't have a slide for it, but I'll just mention briefly that we designed the erosion control for this in accordance with the 2002 Connecticut guidelines for sedimentation and erosion control. And just to give you an idea of some of the erosion control items we have in place, we propose would be an anti-tracking apron, silt fence around the perimeter of the development to control sediment, also inlet protection. So as the stormwater system is installed, we provide inlet protection to keep sediment out of the system. We'll provide diversion swales, stone check dams so that we can control the development as well as control the runoff from the stormwater. Obviously, it's going to be several months to develop each section of the project. We want to make sure that we control any sediment that gets into that runoff. And we propose also to use temporary sediment traps, which will help us to collect and filter out some of those items. In the plans also include a narrative statement and a schedule for how the erosion control should be implemented. And again, those items will also be included in the general permit that goes to DEP. With that, I think I'm going to turn things over to Wayne Violet, who's our landscape architect. He'll run through some of the other items with the project. And unless you have any questions.
Again, like I said to Attorney Nuff, I'm going to have 4 or 5 deep questions here. Unfortunately, I have 9 months of living in a gated community questions now,
Sure.
especially with the fact that I was unaware there was going to be gates. We were told I thought that there weren't going to be gates. So that leads me to many more questions with
Sure.
practical experience here.
Sure.
So whether you want to go through them now or you want to wait till the end of the presentation, you can choose.
Probably wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're certainly open to constructive criticism and feedback about, in deference to the police, we've had different meetings with fire, police, EMS, and for various reasons.
I have
included
other
it.
adjectives
So-
too, like redirection besides constructive criticism.
Okay.
How's that?
Like I said, we're open to,
Just let everyone know, Dave Minow, the architect, is going to be next.
oh, he is, okay. Then I'm going to throw things to Dave, let him run through the architecture. Dave is a remote, so he's going to join us. And then following him, we'll probably jump over to Wayne. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Go ahead, you can go. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Minuo. Minuo and Wasco Architects and Planners. We're located in Lambertville and Newark, New Jersey. We're about an 85-person planning and architecture firm that specializes in multifamily town center type communities like this. We've worked on at least 5 major jobs in Connecticut, Darien, 2 in Stamford, 1 in Simsbury, and 1 in Hamden, Connecticut. So we have a good sense of the area and the market and the building codes in Connecticut. I have a presentation. I don't know whether I can show my screen. And can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, and we can see your screen.
It'll take a minute for it to pop up. I'm very pleased to present the residences at Maine, and we do a fair number of projects with Garden Homes and find them to be a builder of quality because they make decisions based on long-term ownership. And that's always good because they tend to make decisions in favor of quality materials that are going to last and stand time. So I don't want to be repetitive on the site plan issues, but we did work with the engineers to produce the land plan. And Scott mentioned we've placed the short ends of the building toward the perimeters of our property and concentrated development in the center of the site. And that's where our major amenity space is off of Building 4. Just so I'm going to be talking about these buildings in detail. So starting with the building in the upper left, that's Building 1, and then we move clockwise around the site to 2, 3, 4, and 5. So here's a rendering of the site showing the entrance off of Main Street. And I think this gives you a better view of how this property relates to the mall. You can actually see the mall in the background, so it's set way back, and you begin to see the central circular turnaround in the center of our site, and you also begin to see the pool area. But we've also, in these buildings, made them a higher quality apartment building by providing some garage parking to certain tenants. And you can see in this case setback from Main Street quite a bit on the back side of the parking lot. On either side of the main entry, you can see garage doors there. So people would actually be able to drive into their building and park and then come into the building without going outside. So it's a great type of living for people who want to bring groceries into their unit and those types of things. They see it as a higher quality apartment. And as Scott mentioned, we do see 2 major demographic groups renting these apartments. One would be an empty nester, someone who has lived in Trumbull or the direct Trumbull area for most of their lives, raised families there, worked there, had their place of worship there. And now maybe they want to downsize and have a place here and maybe one in the Carolinas or Florida, but we don't want to go to Florida these days. But anyway, this is the type of housing that empty nesters are looking for. And then Scott mentioned that we also will have some young professionals who are just starting out and maybe start a family here. They might get pregnant here and have an infant, but when the child gets to be of school age years, they tend to move out of elevator served buildings into a townhouse or a single family home as their family grows. One other thing I want to point out, and I'm going to talk in more detail about the architecture, but in this drawing, we have the roof that shows how our roof pitches up and then back down to a flat area. And this is where we'll be able to locate out of sight and out of mind some of our mechanical equipment for the buildings. But from the ground level, you won't notice that that's a flat roof area. So moving along, I'm going to try to go through these buildings quickly. They do repeat somewhat, but we have, as has been mentioned, 260 units. This is building 1, which has 68 units. And building 1 was in the upper left-hand or the northwest corner of the site. And this building uses the grade on the site. If you look at the lower level here on the bottom left, you see garages that flank the parking area there. So people can drive in these garages and then come into a corridor system, which takes them to the elevator or stairway to get to their unit. But in between the garages and the corridor are a series of storage units, which could be used for bicycles and other seasonal storage for the tenants. It's a very nice way to handle that. And then we have a multi-purpose room here. And then going up from the ground floor, this is the ground floor, which would be reached from the main lobby, which I'm pointing to here on the bottom of the building on the upper left plan. That would be the main pedestrian lobby to the building, getting you to the elevator. And then this would be typical floors 2 through 4. So in this building, we have 18 one-bedrooms and 50 two-bedrooms. Moving to the elevations, this would be the elevation. It's a long way away, but it would be facing the Main Street entry to the site. It's the eastern elevation of the building. And here you begin to see the use of materials that I'll be repetitive on, but they're high-quality materials. We have a cultured stone, which changes from 1 story to 2 stories. In some cases, we go up 3 stories with it. And we have cementitious horizontal siding. You've heard it referred to as hardy siding. And then we have cementitious panels also used in the building, along with beautiful divided light windows, balconies that you see inset here, and some turned gables of the units. The corner units are going to be quite nice. These are generally living rooms that have glass on 2 sides. And these turret-like elements turn the corner of the building. This is the south elevation, and you can see the grade dropping down, and that would be the lower level on the back side of the building where we would have the garages, which I'm coming to now, which would be the western and northern elevations, showing the garages sort of hidden down here on this lower level. And you can see the street level up here on the upper right. So this is sort of tucked down behind the buildings themselves. And again, that's an L-shaped configuration of those garages. So you see them here on the north elevations. Moving along to buildings 2 and 3. These are the buildings that actually flank the main entry. You could picture the main entry to the site off of Main Street being located here in the center between the 2 buildings. These do not have that lower level grade. So what we've done is on the back side of the first floor of each building, we have the garage, the L-shaped garage court with, again, the storage behind it and the linking to the corridor and to the main lobby. And then the upper 3 floors of each building are double-loaded corridors. And we do quite a nice job. Even the inside corner units are spread out so that we get a very nice window configuration in those inside corner units, which can be the most difficult to design. But you can also see in plan the sort of box bay elements on the corners of these buildings that I referred to in the elevations. That would be on the right and left sides of this elevation. So again, this is the elevation on the top here, the west elevation. It would face Main Street. You won't be seeing the garage doors directly from this side. And then the south elevation facing the entry drive. On the back side of the building inside the court is again where you see the individual garage doors. Moving along to building 3, it's pretty much identical, but flip the other direction. So I'm not going to take your time and go through that. That brings us to building 4, which is a 32-unit building. It's a little bit smaller, but this is because it houses the club on the main ground level. And this is a 4,400 square foot club facility for the entire community, along with a leasing area off of that lobby. And in the club room, or in the club facility itself, we would have a well-fitted out exercise facility, what we call a club room, which is a larger party room that can be used and open out to the pool area. And also we will probably have some small co-working spaces in this post-COVID environment, hopefully, that we're coming into. By the time this gets built, people are going to be looking for a little bit more space to work at home or near home. So within this club facility, we may have some work carrels where people can work privately within the club facility outside of their unit. And the units are spacious enough to have desk areas so that home offices are certainly possible. On the lower level of this building, we do have the garage again because grade falls off here. And we have a series of garages, storage rooms, and access to elevator and stairways. The elevations of this building, this is again facing Main Street, though you don't see it directly from Main Street, but what you will see off of the main circular area is the pool deck and outdoor recreation area there. This is the north elevation, which the pool is directly in front of. And then the west elevation showing the garage doors, and the south elevation showing the end of the building. At this point, I wanted to just show you a little rendering of that center courtyard and how it may appear. This is the pool deck area coming off of building 4. So our main club room and exercise facilities look right out to this pool deck. And in the shoulder seasons, we're going to have grilling stations out here, as well as things like fire pits and things like that that could be used in the early evening hours for the residents to sit outside. Again, this becomes sort of a central focus for the community, this roundabout in the center, and then in the distance, you can see the mall parking lot. Let's see, I'm going the wrong direction here, okay. So moving along, this is building 5, which is also a straight building, a few more units in this, 36 units with 10 one-bedrooms and 26 two-bedrooms. And again, this has that lower level parking. So parking is there, and we have a large storage unit here on that level. And then we have the ground floor and the upper levels. The storage is really not to be minimized because, again, that's one of the things that will make the residents at Main a higher quality facility. And people do have things that they want to keep stored. They have suitcases, they have seasonal items that they want to put up in their apartments, and these are great places to store those. And then there's some community-wide storage. Again, the north elevation of this building facing the Parkway, and then the west elevation at the bottom, which is the short end. And then here we have the elevation that shows the garage doors in the back on that lower level. You can see how grade rises outside of the building, and then the end elevation or the east elevation. We got a comment, I think, from the planning staff person for Trumbull to show some of our unit types, and I'm happy to do that. On the left, you see a typical one-bedroom unit with a nice terrace on the outside, beautiful open kitchen, open living, dining, kitchen area with plenty of glass, 3 pieces of glass. So right as you come in the door, you see right through the unit, walk-in closets and nice bathrooms. A typical inline 2-bedroom unit, we tend to do a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with the bedroom split and a terrace off of the living room and bedroom 2. Large walk-in closets, and again, a nice U-shaped kitchen, very open kitchen, living, dining in the center of the unit. And then the corner units are quite nice because you have this diagonal entry. So as you take a step into the unit, you're looking right out the corner glass of the living room, over the kitchen and living dining area. And then the two bedrooms are split from one another, giving additional privacy to those two bedrooms. I showed these two to indicate that we're not intending on building any dens with this product, but it's either a one bedroom or two different types of two bedroom that we're planning here. This is another view of the site. And again, you see Main Street on the right here and the Merritt Parkway to the north. And this would be the entry on the bottom of the sheet here, looking from the mall entry road coming into the site to the circle the other direction. And you're seeing buildings 4 and 5 located here in the foregrounds, buildings 2 and 3 on the right, and building 1 in the far upper left-hand corner. So you see a sense that the closest part of the architecture to the more public roads, in this case, the mall entry road, and on the Main Street side are the shorter ends of the buildings. And I think that the materials are muted. It's like an updated traditional style. There's still a base, a middle, and a top to these buildings, and they're well ornamented. So I'm going back to the original rendering, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
Thank you. The question I have is probably going to come later. We can come back to this slide. I want them to show me where the gates are going to be because they're not shown on this slide.
That's correct. I mean, just if you can see my cursor, they would be back in this center area here.
And is that to scale?
Yeah.
The cars?
Yes. I believe, personally, I believe there could be more than 3 cars stacked coming into the site off of Main Street.
Yeah, so when we get to
give you the exact dimensions.
Sorry. When we get to the gate discussions after, whether it's you or some of the others, you know, the double lane versus, you know, the stacked and the issues with getting in the gate, I want to go into some depth with that, whether it's now or later. We can go later. I guess they wanted to move on. So we can take a look at this slide after. John, I wanted to ask you, how many more presenters do we have? Or just how long is you? Because we're just past the halfway point. So I wanted to maybe take a 5 minute.
We have Wayne and we have Mike Ian, our traffic engineer. So if you want to hang in there, probably 10 minutes between the two of them.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Wayne Violet, landscape architect, BL Companies. Address is 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. What I'm going to walk you through is the landscape plans, the kind of intention for layout of that scheming, and I'm going to talk also at the very end of my presentation, which is not going to be all that long, about that pedestrian connection a little bit more. So just wanted to start out with a couple focal points, building off of the architecture, building off of that pedestrian connectivity. A great place is represented really by having that walkable feel, that great kind of streetscape element. And one of the main goals of the landscape, the planting that you're going to see, is really to enhance that walkability, that streetscape feel, to really make this a great place. So not only the streetscape element, but really complementing some of that great architecture that you just saw are some of the main goals with what the landscape is intended to do. And not only that, to meet zoning, to meet the kind of master plan for this particular area. So Bill, if you could you bring up exhibit number 4? Should be an overall plan of the site. I'm going to walk you through kind of 4 or 5 of the main considerations, the main zones for kind of the landscape design, and hopefully you guys can follow along with me. So we've oriented ourselves. I won't spend a lot of time there. What you're seeing here is just an overall view of the site. And the first place I want to start on is that front landscaped area right along Main Street, right along Route 111. In order for this to be a great place, we need to start right at the entry point, right at what most of the public are going to see for this particular site. So we have a large, wide, landscaped front area that ranges anywhere from 40 feet, kind of near the northern corner of this site, to as wide as about 100 feet wide as we get closer to the southern end. So a landscaped area that contains landscape berming, plantings, natural grass areas, again, anywhere from 40 to 100 feet in width, separation from Main Street to parking areas to buildings. So a very wide kind of landscaped area right at our gateway. And to really enhance and accentuate that kind of welcoming to the site, in addition to the landscaping and the berming, we've located and proposed natural freestanding stone walls to kind of complement the history of the area to really welcome you in. And those are really enhanced right at that main entry, that drive entry into the site. We have two stone freestanding wing walls that flank your entry into the site. That with complementary landscaping is really going to be a nice pop, a nice accentuation right there as you're coming into the site. The berm, which I mentioned a couple times, is kind of intermittent through this front landscape zone because we are going to attempt to save some of the existing large size trees that are in that front zone. There's a decent landscaped area there, and what happens is when you start peeling some of the existing vegetation away, certain trees are really going to show better than others, but our intention is to save some of those great existing trees right along that frontage to really help provide some of that interest right off the bat. The landscape berm that's proposed along that front area ranges anywhere from 4 to 6 feet in height. Upon that landscape berm, we are intended to do new additional supplemental plantings to that front landscape zone, which contains shade canopy trees, understory shrubs and ground covers, as well as ornamental flowering trees. So quite a robust kind of front entryway, a lot of curb appeal right along Main Street coming into the site. Moving away from that kind of front landscaped area, which again is very robust, moving to the north side of the site, the perimeter sticking with at this point, the north perimeter to the site, which borders the highway, Route 15, the proposal for this landscape plan is a supplemental and additional evergreen tree buffer. We are intending to have multiple species, evergreen species along that northern buffer to really add a element of separation from the highway to this development. And we're planting those anywhere from about 10 to 15 feet on center. That will allow some growth over the maturity of these particular plantings. Those plants, to begin with, will start at install height 6 to 7 feet and will go continue to grow 20, 30 feet over a long period of time. And really kind of create that kind of tucked in, screened buffer that we really want for this particular development along that north boundary. Along the western boundary and then the southern boundary, which are the Mall Ring Road and the Mall Entry Drive, we are locating not only maintained lawn area, but shade canopy trees to not only meet the kind of the local regulations of canopy trees every so often, but also to create that kind of rhythm and some verticality along those particular sides to really frame in this development and edge the parking area. Regarding moving kind of a little bit to the interior for the parking areas, what we've done, again, in compliance with zoning, is to locate overstory shade canopy trees throughout all, if not most of the islands within the parking area. Underneath the overstory shade canopy trees, which those will be 3-inch caliper at install to meet local regulations. We'll have a attractive ground cover planting scheme underneath those trees. So not just mulch, not just hard to maintain lawn, but actually attractive low maintenance ground covers that are going to look great, multi-seasonal throughout the parking area. So again, you have that shade cover from above, but also having an attractive, well-maintained ground cover throughout the parking areas. I want to switch over, because we've looked at this graphic for a bit. I want to switch over to Exhibit 6, if you wouldn't mind, Bill. This, I want to get into a little bit of the streetscape, a little bit of the feel for what this place can look like. That top graphic, which is eerily highlighted in blue, this isn't a night setting, but it's highlighted in blue there at the top. That just shows a typical cross-section or elevation in that kind of great heart of the zone, you know, the heart of the streetscape for this project. And what you're seeing is a 2 travel lane. So there's 2 travel lanes either direction, 2 lanes on either side for on-street parking. You're seeing wide areas between the roadway and parking areas and building face. And those range from 16 to 20 feet in width, where you can accommodate sidewalks, planting, street trees as shown here, kind of front areas and front entries into these 4-story buildings, which are flanked on either side. So the intention here is to create a very inviting, walkable community. Just to take a look right at the right scale, again, we have these buildings at 4-story in height. That width between building to building is over 70 feet in horizontal distance from one face to the other. That's the typical cross-section for these areas. And this is just to give you a little bit of a snapshot, just to make sure that scale is right, and that these, again, we're creating that great walkable place with those street trees really complementing the architecture, but also creating that rhythm along the street. So I mentioned in total, we do believe that we have a zone-compliant landscape plan. There were some comments as it related to species on the proposed plant list. We are open to switching or swapping out species to a more preferred species based on comments. That certainly isn't an issue. I did want to mention that if you've seen the proposed plant list that's intended for the site, it's a diverse, native, where possible plant list. It's not a handful of species. There are over a dozen tree species intended here, probably closer to 20 tree species that are intended for the site. We try to apply diversity with the planting scheme for long-term longevity. As you've seen in the presentation, high-end materials, high-end landscaping. We want these things to last for a very long time.
One of the things that we've done in recent years, and it's working, is after input from yourself and any of the commissioners, we leave it open to the town planner and staff that has authority to make any on-site changes, or with you know, some tree wasn't available, or they wanted to make a switch, or 2 instead of 3, or 3 instead of whatever it is, any modifications can still be made with his blessing or through his instruction once we leave this.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, the reality is, you know, we can come up with the greatest planting plan and landscape plan, and oftentimes we may run into a particular year where certain species or cultivar may be a little bit lacking or slim or hard to get, and having that working relationship is great because we get something approved that's equally native and equally what we want to do from design intent. So hearing that's great. We'd be very open to that.
Wayne, would you be able to just talk about, because I've seen some pictures of the roundabout landscape and some without. If you could just talk about what's happening there.
Yeah, sure. If just for reference, Bill, if you don't mind, can we just pull up the, let's go to Exhibit 4, which is the overall site plan. And if you have the ability to zoom in right into that circle right in the middle, right at the 4 points, just so everyone can see. Yeah, it kind of looks green there, but I think it'll tone differently. So the proposal for that center median at the moment is for that center median to be hardscape. One of the images that we had seen previously showed that as to be planted in landscape. The current proposal is that for that to be hardscape, whether it's a stamped concrete material or stamped bituminous. But as of right now, that median that you see there, that circle right in the center of the graphic, right at the heart of the kind of intersection there, is not intended to be planted or landscape. The current proposal has that to be hardscape.
Yeah, I believe that was a requirement of the fire marshal. Just let that be a mountable curve.
Yep. Yeah, so that will be a mountable curb, but that was in contradiction to one of the previous images, so that's a good point. Yep. And just a couple final points as it relates to the planting, just so everyone has understanding. The shade canopy trees, which again are the 3-inch caliper by code, we have more than 90 proposed for this particular site. For the ornamental flowering trees, which are 2-inch in caliper, a little bit smaller, more than 60 proposed for the site. And then evergreen trees throughout the site is more than 100. So in total, we have over 250 trees that we're proposing for this particular site, which is, well adapted, and we think is a robust scheme for here.
And the area will be irrigated, correct? Will be irrigation system?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. As a residential upkeep, the question was about irrigation and watering. Definitively, at establishment of the tree plantings, they'll get heavily irrigated, but more regular maintenance is going to continue to happen over the years on a regular basis to keep this place looking great. So yes, irrigation will be part of it. And I just want, so that was a little bit of a highlighted version of the landscape. I'm sure we may have some questions later. But Bill, last request, if we can go to Exhibit 2. And I just wanted to hit this again. John Schmitz, an earlier presenter, had mentioned the pedestrian connection. And this is one of those important pieces just from a design standpoint and a flow standpoint that, with a great place needs great connections to neighboring amenities. And so we took some time locating this particular pedestrian connection from the new residential community to the mall just to the west there. And
Do you have any renderings like the last speaker, or you just have this one-dimensional?
We only have this one-dimensional, so if it's not helpful, we can move forward. But this is the rendering that we have for the pedestrian
I think
connection.
if you have the ability for when we come back, that would be good to see what it's actually going to look like,
Sure.
because that's super important to this whole project.
Yes.
It was part of the discussion, I know, from the regulation approval. It was something that was lacking that was brought back. That's an add-on from this commission saying, make sure it's there. So a one-dimensional squiggly line is probably not going to be enough, seeing as it was a linchpin on moving forward.
Yeah, fair enough. And we certainly recognize this is one of those critical pieces, and we did have put the time to it. So yeah, having it in a different angles, 3D, would be helpful to see.
If you didn't do it with the other stuff, it's fine. But because you can do it and it's done, we should do it for that.
Okay, fair enough. So with that, this again was the pedestrian connection, and we'll come back with that comments. And at that point, I think I'll pass it to
break time. So we're going to take a
yeah.
break now. We're going to put that on Zoom that we're on break. There'll probably be questions for you after, just like with everybody else. So let's say, less than 10 minutes tops, guys. We'll be back. We're on break. Thank you. Okay, we're live? Okay, we're live, folks. Okay, we're going to resume the meeting. And what I'll do now is I'll talk to the folks at home who are joining us via Zoom and Trumbull Community Television, but more so for the folks on Zoom, those people from the public who want to participate with public comment. My suggestion is there are some more details coming up this evening, and the commissioners are going to ask some questions. So there's going to be a lot of questions and answers happening in the next hour plus. But when we finish with the applicant and the questioning begins with the commissioners, it is clear by the time of the evening here and the length of this application that we will in no way finish all the comments and questions just from the commissioners, which has to take place before public comment. So the reason for this is that we are not going to get to the public comment portion of the application this evening. It will most likely be at the August 19th meeting, but anybody who is waiting to talk and doesn't want to continue, I just wanted to offer that to you, that we will most likely not get to public comment this evening because we will probably not finish the commissioner's comments. But it is my suggestion, as I said, in the next hour, there's going to be a lot of questions and answers between the applicant and the commissioners, which may answer some of your questions and may add some more facts. So thank you for that. And I would ask the applicant if they would continue. Name and address for the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. For the record, my name is Michael Dion. I am a senior project engineer and the traffic lead at BL Companies, 355 Research Parkway, Meriden, Connecticut. If you could bring up the PowerPoint for me. It's a little easier for everybody to follow along instead of just listening to numbers. Again, myself, I've got 22 years experience. I work with the State Office of State Traffic Administration all the time, and I oversaw a couple of studies in town already. This again is at 5085 Main Street. It's a 260 unit residential development that we're proposing. So what we did with our traffic study is we started off with the data collection effort. And we did do these counts back in October of 2019, so it was pre-COVID. And we looked at 3 peak hours, which was the AM, the PM commuting peaks, and then the Saturday shopping peak. Typically for development like this, we wouldn't look at the Saturday shopping peak, but as it's adjacent to the mall, we definitely wanted to look at that peak as well. We also went out in the field and did a field inventory where we took a bunch of photographs of the intersections. We wanted to verify the lane arrangements and geometries that are on the traffic signal plans we got from the department. And then we also have data that's historically available out there, 24-hour counts. And we've noticed that from 2004 to 2013, the available counts, you see a steady decline in the traffic, mostly due to people, I think, not going to the mall as much. What we did with our counts then is we projected them to what we call the horizon year, which is our construction year, which is 2022 in this case. And then we went to the department and asked for any proposed developments they might know of that are coming in to add into our volumes that we counted to make sure that we're encompassing all traffic that could be out there. And that becomes our background traffic. And then what we do, excuse me, we go to the Institute of Transportation Engineers. They have a trip generation manual. This has actually been around for 4 decades, and it is the Bible go-to for generating trips for developments of this sort. And as you can see from the chart in the paper, we developed trip generation rates for this development, which is AM commuting peak, about 87 trips total, PM peak, 111, and Saturday shopping peak, about 102 trips. So what we do with that data is we put it into a traffic program called Synchro. And then it comes up with a level of service at the intersections. And what that does is it takes the delay at each intersection and assigns a letter grade to it, just like you're in school. So a grade of A is great, F is failing. In Connecticut, a letter grade of D or above is considered acceptable. So there's a lot of small numbers on the page here, but what you can see from the overall delay at the intersections, you get a delay change from our trips, from our development of about anywhere in the range of 1 to 3 seconds of additional delay at an intersection. So that's imperceptible to the traveling public. And what the Office of State Traffic Administration is going to look at is if there's any levels of service changes from a D to an E. And we did have one location that happened, which is the northbound left turn lane off of the highway. But that actually went from a D to an E, but it was really just a change in delay of 1 second. Yes, but if it's existing E, they look at if it changes and gets worse. So this is just the one location that it got worse, when it went from acceptable to unacceptable. The left turn off of northbound left off of the Merritt.
That was affected by what?
Yes, because we have, we did the 3 intersections, the ones at the Merritt and then the mall intersection we studied. So when our traffic is coming off the highway, any additional traffic, and as I said, it changed it by 1 second. So that's why that's probably a couple of cars you put there. So when we looked at it, put some of this, that we wanted to work with the mall and putting rectangular rapid flashing beacons. There's a picture of one we did right there. And what that is it's at a crosswalk. You push a button, and instead of a traffic light changing, it flashes strobe lights so that the people know that there's somebody crossing and they stop. We also want to prohibit left turns out of the site, so we did put in a pork chop for the right turn only out, and that is partially raised island, so they can't drive over it to get out. We wanted to add stop bars and lines at all the site driveways, and we did actually discuss this project with the Board of Ed, and they already have a bus stop out there, so this is not going to be anything new. It's not an additional stop. And all of this is actually going to have to go to the Office of State Traffic Administration because it does meet their criteria of the amount of parking spaces. So this will be submitted to them, and we actually spoke to them already and are setting up a meeting with them that we have. We invited Deputy Chief Sintu to the meeting.
As we go on with this, we can go into depth later, but I'm going to be having a discussion with you about a double pork chop and no left turn coming north on Main Street.
Sure.
just-
Yep, that's fine.
so-
And what we did do is we did provide a left turn lane in to get cars out of the through traffic, so the traffic wouldn't be held up there. And we actually wanted the left turn in. We're not showing a lot of traffic going in that way because they would have to pass the mall entrance where they have a dedicated left turn at a signal, which is a
Right.
lot safer. But this is,
You can stop there.
but I mean,
It's a lot safer. There's no reason to let them go that much farther because with the continued flow of traffic when the light's green or the backed up traffic, as you said, when it's there, there's no way we want to stop the north flow either from the mall exit or the normal traffic.
right, so that's why we added
that-
the left turn lane so they get out of the traffic flow and they can
Right.
go in.
I'm going to
And
save
this
you,
is-
we're going to save you money adding that lane.
It's, I think our concern is that it does have a Main Street address. So this entrance is really for the visiting public that doesn't know where the place is. And if they miss the mall entrance because your Waze isn't going to take you that way,
I
they're
would-
going to have to go all the way down to.
I would
the
sleep
police station and turn
comfortable at
around.
night knowing they didn't get into an accident or cause an accident trying to get in, then they had to make a U-turn and come back.
So, hey, we'll get into questions, but this is actually the end. I just had their site plan here. And again, where we had the rapid flashing beacons for the crossing at the mall so that the public can easily access mall property. And I'll leave it up to questions, or you want to close it out for questions for the group?
Go ahead. Use your microphone tone, please.
Just remind commissioners to announce yourself before speaking.
Yeah, because the public can't see us. Just bring it over. It should be on. And say your
Hello?
name.
There's been no discussion, my name is Tony Corey. There's been no discussion about the bus stop for tonight at all. And I'm just curious as to why that wasn't discussed.
Evening again, Mr. Corey, John Nutt for the record. I well remember the conversations we had 2 years ago about the bus stop, and we have been in contact with Dawn Perkins, and she has said and has confirmed that for years there have always been bus stops for each of the various schools on Main Street in this vicinity, and what she indicated to us is that the bus stop would be at our main access drive on Main Street, whether it's the elementary school, middle school, or high school. So that would be the location for school bus stops.
And the question, when the bus stops, does that stop all, like? I think
That's the
there's
law. Yep,
All 4 lanes going across?
that's the law. Yep. As it does today, as it did for years when kids were living on Stewart and Walburn. Buses, all traffic has to stop for school buses. And we confirmed even 2 years ago that there were a number of bus stops, a number of kids who were getting on the bus on both sides of Main Street, both west side and east side. And of course, traffic must do what the law requires, and that is to stop in both directions so children can get safely on the bus. And certainly, the school system does not require kids to cross Main Street, but nonetheless, traffic has to stop in both directions.
And they chose the main entrance?
Yeah, and we can continue working with the Board of Education, but the indication from Dawn Perkins was that the bus stop would be at the main access drive, probably south of the main access drive so that cars can continue to pull in the morning. But for the most part, yeah, that's what.
It would be probably south of it?
I would think that would make some sense. But again, if a bus is stopped, all traffic must stop.
Yeah. One of the things we don't know, Commissioner Cinto, right now is how many children across the street would there be? So having the bus pull down would defeat it if they were getting them from both sides. Any other questions right now from any of the commissioners while we're doing it with this portion of the traffic study?
I'm still confused as to how the northbound traffic is affected by traffic flow, if that could be explained to me. Isn't there 2 lanes getting off the Merritt Parkway that would, one would go south and one would go north?
So northbound on the Parkway?
Well, no, northbound on Main Street is affected. I just don't, I'm confused as to how that calculation happens.
Oh, it's northbound exit on a parkway.
And northbound
record
on
might
Main
be
Street.
on with BL Companies. Commissioner Cinto, that was actually it was the off the highway taking the left to go on Main Street.
Yeah, I'm confused on as to how going north, isn't there 2 lanes coming off the Merritt Parkway or just one?
There's 2. So what it is, so the traffic coming off that stops at that light, the traffic coming to our site, there will be additional traffic at that light from southbound Merritt Parkway, taking a left onto Main Street to go to our site. That's the movement that went from a D to an E.
Southbound? Coming southbound off the Merritt Parkway going to your
Yes,
site?
so you take a left to go to the site.
Can you bring his chart back up? Because you said northbound and it said NB. So now you're saying SB. So we need to.
A map might be better, actually.
Because, so now you're saying it's southbound, going southbound on the Merritt Parkway and going down southbound on Main Street, is it
No, this is actually the northbound left turn.
the northbound left?
So Main Street northbound, oh wait, nope, I'm on the AM. So northbound left turn. So the Main Street northbound movement. So the Main Street taking a left onto the Merritt. The additional traffic there adds a second of delay. So when you're coming north on Main Street, turning left,
To go south on the Merritt?
yes, that's where the 1 second of additional delay was. And this will go to OSTA for them to look at, and if they want to do some remediation, they will. This is the only single point urban intersection in the state, though, so anything I suggest, they're going to want to look at a lot more in depth, just because it's their baby.
Could you, just so I understand, what would be the normal traffic coming out of the mall at the peak compared to this?
The mall driveway is right there in the middle. So it's at the overall intersection is a level of service C without the,
How many cars, say, come out of the mall?
let me grab my notes. So the existing mall traffic, obviously in the AM, there's not a lot. There's 100 taking lefts and 75 taking rights. In your PM, you've got 565 taking lefts and 295 going right.
And how many is this going to have adding to that?
To the mall driveway,
Well, okay, so you got 565, or now these same cars have to take a left out of the mall, right? Because they can't take a left.
Yes. So all those cars coming out, taking lefts, we are adding 62 in the AM, 36 in the PM, 45 in the Saturday.
Okay. So it's like it went from, say, you said 500, was it? The peak?
I think it's 565, I said, to 607.
Okay.
Right. But let me ask you, even because we're down this rabbit hole, a more detailed, your measurements were based off your ability to take your own untimed left-hand turn out of Main Street. If we now are saying all left turns have to come out of the mall at
No,
the
they do
timed
now.
light, hold on. At the timed light sequence, would that maybe relieve some of that pressure because they're within the timed light sequence from the mall to the next two lights? I don't know if you follow that.
No, because we didn't have any left turns coming out of our site
Yeah.
at an unsignalized
They
driveway.
make you go out, take a left.
So they all had to come out.
They
to
all
the
had
mall.
to be right
All
from
come
when
out
you
of the
did
mall.
this.
You
Okay.
have to go
Yes.
onto
Yeah.
you have to go out that back entrance.
Okay.
Yeah,
go
so
through the
everything
mall,
comes
right,
out of
go
the mall
to right,
driveway.
take a
Yeah.
left. That's the
I
way
mean,
they have it
we
set up.
should concentrate always on all the traffic and any implication that there is. Seeing this as 1 second
Yeah.
of delay, it's kind of, de minimis. But the overall, all the details that we have to work about. This mall was designed in that traffic flow for probably 4 times the volume of traffic
Right.
that's at the mall now. So adding 100 to 200 cars throughout the day is not going to be,
It's
the
only-
end all
it's
be all
only
for
10%.
this.
But I just want to clarify, the mall, the only left you could take out of that,
Is from the mall.
you have to go into the mall, around the loop, and go out. at the
No, I
right.
think they're
Is that
cutting
correct?
you're cutting the Esplanade, right? So they can come right straight across and go up? Or do they
No.
have to go down and around the
They have
road
to go down and around.
today?
You can only go out that entrance that's across from the gymnasium, right? That's the only way you can.
They can come out on the mall driveway, but they have to take a right, or they can go out on Main Street, but they have to take a right. There's no left turns if there's
Yeah.
two.
So,
They're going to know, are the people going to know it? How are they going to know that? Do they have to go all the way to that back entrance and around to take a left onto Main Street?
We could put interior signing, but residents are gonna
Figure it
know
out.
where they have to go.
Commissioner,
And just by way of background, we had contemplated creating a curb cut in that center median, and very early
Microphone.
on, the police department said, that was, I'm sorry, very early on, the police department encouraged us to delete that curb cut through the center median to provide safer egress, from the site. I mean, certainly residents will know the second or third time that they try to make that maneuver, that they're better off going out the back way.
so you initially had a curb cut through the center median coming up from the mall and the police commission asked you to take
It
it
was
out?
on a concept plan that we showed to the police and fire early on, even before the submission of the application. And we were encouraged to delete that. And so as we did with all the other suggestions they made, we incorporated that into our plan.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question that I've asked them all. How many years have I been here now? At what point is the mall going to redo and put some capital into that turn? Because when you're leaving the mall, coming from Plaintiff, the gym, whatever it is, and you get to the light, it's a double left turn. And it's not engineered exactly correct for a double left turn. There's always the brush up against the other car. One has to go first. So now we're going to be adding purposeful turns there. So whether that center esplanade needs to be shortened, what has to be widened on the other side, I'm going to ask that you seriously investigate that now because of this no turn situation, that becomes part of this.
Understood. We're not aware of any specific problem with that double left turn currently. I think if you looked at what the total traffic volumes were that were approved back when we did Target years ago, they're actually greater than what we're proposing now. So one way of looking at this is that our proposed traffic has already been approved back in the day when Target was approved.
The issue is it's not lined it's not real clear that both lanes can turn left, and they do, and two medium to large size vehicles, both trying to do it, cannot accurately make it with very little wiggle room on both sides with the way it's designed right now. So, you know, that turn needs some love and attention, especially with the fact we're going to be sending 50 cars a day down the hill to loop around it now.
Well, I mean, we're happy to take a look at it, but keep in mind that the time of the traffic that's departing from the residential is going to be operating at different times than the peak hour of the retail. So obviously, if people are leaving the residential area, you know, in the
Right.
morning to go to work, they're the only folks who are going to be in that area.
That would be a good comeback for why you wouldn't or shouldn't have to do it. And I'm looking for reasons for better of 10 years now why it should be improved. So,
All right, so why don't we go back and take a look at that and see if there's any accident history in that area to see to what extent it's warranted, and we're happy to come back to you next time and report on that.
Mr. Silber.
It's Tony Silver. So you're saying people can come out of the apartment complex and make a U-turn at the bottom of that, where that double left
No.
is?
So we're saying, I don't know if we can get to a site plan, is they're likely to come down, leave the site via the sort of the northern access drive down to the ring road. And then, so if you can see in the top
can
left
walk up and
corner,
point.
in the
You
top
can
left
walk up to
corner.
it and point.
Okay.
He's talking about the rear entrance exit closest to the mall. There's 3 entrance exits. He's talking about the one in the back.
Yeah,
Right.
not the one.
That's great.
Not
Thanks,
the one
Bill.
on the hill, the one in the
Right.
back.
So if, I don't know if we have a pointer, but maybe if Mike.
He can
be-
do it, human, yeah.
Yeah, if Mike can be my Carol Merrill, he can indicate the access drive from the northwest corner of the residential portion. No, northwest. Exactly. So people leaving in the morning would come down that road, make that left, and then leave the main access drive. So certainly they would not be encouraged to make that U-turn. And I think they would quickly learn not to do that.
And I don't want to belabor it, but so if you come out on the mall entry drive on your way in the morning, right? You choose to come out that,
Yep.
and so you have to make a right turn and go down to the double left there in front of Target. Will people try to make U-turns here?
I would imagine they could have made that attempt, but
That's really dangerous, to Fred's point. If that's what your Fred is saying, that's.
I don't see people in building 3 driving from being tucked in there, looping around to the rotary and going out that back entrance all the way in the back corner when they can take a left and go out there, go down and spin around. It's just practical, you know. I'm trying to make this as easy and workable for the human factor, you know, whether we have to ask the police commission what was their safety issues for that cut in the Esplanade, you know, and maybe go back and see if there's, you know, if it can be widened or narrowed or whatever is necessary there.
The basis for that was not stopping traffic that is entering the main mall access drive as you come down that hill and having to cross those lanes of traffic and then finding an adequate spot to sit and wait while other mall traffic is departing and heading east on the main access drive. And there wasn't sufficient room there for a car to stop and safely move on.
That would be trying to cross that through the Esplanade there would be really bad. I mean, the cars go 50 miles an hour down that road.
For what you were going to do and widen and making a left turn lane on Main Street to take a left in, you can take that capital and make a left U-turn and widen that driveway at the bottom so it's all safe and nice.
I would tell you that through various meetings with 2 police commission meetings and 2 long meetings with Deputy Chief Cinto and Sergeant Catino, that these issues were never raised.
They were never what?
Were never raised.
What do you mean?
The point is that they had no concerns with regard to how residents will be departing the site and getting out onto Main
Right.
Street.
They're only worried about what the traffic is on the road. We're worried about that. So that's why we're talking about it now.
frankly, Mr. Chairman, I would disagree that they don't care about the safety of the people living here. In fact, that's one
I
of the
didn't say
reasons.
they don't care about the safety. I said,
That's one of the reasons why we relocated the crosswalk. It was at their direction and request. As I said, we're happy to take a look at it.
okay. I'll be interested in what you find. Thank you.
Like you,
Excuse me, sir, you're going to need to.
Commissioner, I just want to make sure
Where
I'm
you
clear that
pointed,
you
yeah.
were talking that double
Where
left.
those
The existing
double
double left
lanes
at the
go up.
mall. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the traffic that we have now?
Yeah, I still think, I'm a little confused.
Say your name
about-
again. It's been a while because people at
yeah.
home don't know who's talking.
Commissioners, I
Tony.
just want to ask you all, I know we don't want to stop the free flow of conversation, but we do need to make sure that people at home can hear who is speaking and maybe just be recognized through the chair each time, if you don't
Yeah,
mind. Thank you.
so my name is Tony Corey. So there's going to be cars turning into the apartments, and there's going to be a gate that's down, and they're going to have to, what they do, are they going to have an electronic, like a automatic thing that knows their car and raises the gate, or are they going to have to stop and press a button?
Yes, so residents will have the equivalent of an Easy Pass, so they can just go right through the gates.
Okay.
It's visitors who need a key card. But so from what I understand from Scott Loventhal, every resident will have an Easy Pass to go through the gate without having to stop. They will also be given a key card should that become necessary, and they will also be given the code. So the vast majority of the residents are going to be entering the site with their Easy Pass, with stopping or slowing down for a very short amount of time.
And there's going to be a sign that says visitors keep right? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, so during the break, we were sort of chatting about how we can, in response to the chairman's questions. And so I think when we come back next time, we'll have, an even better answer for you in terms of whether we can create 2 lanes, one for residents, 1 for visitors. And so we can help ensure that there's no queuing issues.
There should really be 2 gates, right? One for
Yeah.
visitor gate and one for the residents?
Well,
I'm confident that when we come back, we can depict it to your satisfaction.
I can tell you the issues that exist and the smoothness that exists and vice versa. Where I am, there's 2 entrances and 1 exit. One side has fob only and the other side has the keypad and a fob. So the keypad calls, like I'm assuming you're put in, call the number. So when you're saying people will have the code, are they also going to have a 4 or 5 digit code that if they press it, the gate will lift?
I believe, yes. And listen.
So if they give that to a visitor, they wouldn't even have to call. They can just press it and go in.
Yes.
Okay. So what happens is, unfortunately, in a mechanical world with rain and everything else, occasionally those break. So you have cones there, and where I am, there's only 1 entrance. So there's a guard check. It's not always 24 hours, 7 days a week, but it is often manned, and especially when it breaks, because depending on which one breaks, you have to, if the one with the keypad breaks, you can only get in with a fob. So it has to be manned 24/7. And they have the escape, as you said. But in those peak hours, when the cars are coming in, everybody's coming home from work at the same time. And we live in a Grubhub world, and those folks are there, and whoever isn't answering their phone because, and commissioners don't know, it's no longer when you press the code, it goes to your cell phone, and your cell phone has to open the gate. It's no longer a buzzer. So there's constantly people backing up and causing that issue. So you definitely need the pull off. And now, like you said, you'll come back with the reduction of possibly not going to be the ability to take a left turn in off Main Street. You may want to talk about that double lane on the mall path or in the back, whichever you choose.
Well, I want to be really clear on that left turn in. That is an OSTA determination. I mean, the commission can make whatever recommendation it has. The police commission has okayed it, but the ultimate decision on the left turn in is going to be up to the state. It's not anyone else's decision other than theirs. As to the issue with how the gates work, there's one person in this room who has more experience with this than anyone else, and that's Scott Leventhal. He's done this at many of his communities, and I'm sure he'd be happy to walk all of us through how that process works so that there are no queuing problems, there are no mechanical problems, and so there are no backups, either onto Main Street or onto the main access drive.
You're saying it's not going to be manned? The gate won't be manned in case there's a mechanical issue?
It will be, no, it will, none of those gates will be manned. I mean, you couldn't hire 3 people 24 hours a day.
No, I'm just saying the one on Main Street should be manned. I think.
No, it will not be manned, and I think what Scott would tell you is that it's not necessary for it to be manned.
We have testimony that they break.
Oh, you have toll booths on the Hutchison and where thousands of cars go through every hour.
Yeah, they don't have a gate.
It's no gate. It's doable, in my opinion.
Attorney Nuff, you, at the call box, you either call in or insert a card. The gate may not open up, but you have to move now 60 feet, and you get to the gate and it happens to go down. What do you do? Because how do you turn around? Because you have parallel parking there.
No, so there's an opportunity to make a U-turn prior to getting to the gates.
Oh, I understand. I see that. I'm worried about a car puts his card in, goes up to the gate, and it doesn't open up. And now he can't make a U-turn because of the parallel parking. Can we not get rid of that parallel parking?
No, I mean, the purpose of the parallel parking is, as Scott said, it gives us sort of like a town center feel. It helps pedestrians feel a little bit safer as they're walking along the sidewalks. I mean, if you're talking about the elimination of a spot or two, we can certainly look at that, but certainly not, we're not going to eliminate all parallel parking throughout the development, but if you're asking about a space or two adjacent to the gates.
Yeah.
I can live with
Commissioner D'Aquila, agreeing with what you're saying is the issue. Before we try and resolve it, a more succinct way to say that is when the gate fails or there's a mechanical issue or so Johnny doesn't answer his phone or they have the wrong code, there's cars queued up behind them. That's the issue. It's not that there's not a place for, if they were all by themselves, they could turn around. I mean, I've been through it where 2 or 3 cars have to back out into the road to let the car who can no longer get in. That's why I was surprised when I saw there were gates. I didn't think there were gates up until, that it brings a whole myriad of questions. And
again, it was a decision that was not entered into lightly. It was at the request of the police department. Their concern was that during busy holiday periods that people would forego going down to the main access drive and cut through the residential portion to get to the mall. And so it was specifically at their suggestion and request, and we were happy to comply because it's the police department. So that's how we got there.
Okay. So is there anybody else left to present from your side?
Unless, Scott's happy to walk you through the response memo very quickly, if that's your preference.
Yeah, we can go through the response memo and then, as we get closer to 10 o'clock, what I might do, I've never done this before, but I may ask each of the commissioners if they have some substantial questions that we can get them out.
Oh, yeah.
Now, so that you can have something to go away with.
We would prefer that too.
Right. So, yeah, if you would run through the staff report and your answers, and if the commissioners could, at least let's try and let them get through the whole thing. Because as we're approaching 10 o'clock, I want to be able to ask each of the commissioners any of their high-level questions and subjects that they'd like addressed for next time.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman. So what I'll do, I'll simply, so that the public hears and all the commissioners here, I'll read the question that was in Rob's review memo, and I'll provide our answers. And then certainly if there's questions after that, we can go into those questions. So the first question that Rob asked is, what is the projected start and end date of the project? And I indicated that should All entitlements be in place. We anticipate groundbreaking in early 2021, and construction to initial occupancy is expected to take approximately 18 months, and to stabilization, which is complete occupancy and completion of construction, a total of 36 months, so early 2024. There was a question raised about the hours of the clubhouse, and I indicated that the latest occupancy generally in our common area clubhouse facilities is no later than 11 o'clock. The pool will not be open in the evening. Pools are always closed at sundown with regard to, and usually our pools are open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. I will also tell you, because I'm sure it's a question that may arise, and that is the community center and clubhouse facilities are for our residents only. They are not going to be used for commercial purposes. They are not rented for commercial purposes. They are for use for residents only, which is a question that often comes up in this particular instance. Is the pool seasonal? Yes, of course, the pool is seasonal, as I just described. And they asked, Rob asked where the furniture from the pool will be stored. As our architect, Dave Minnow, provided for in our floor plans, we have not only individual storage rooms that are for rent by our residents, but on our ground floor level, we also have storage rooms that are available for all of our various maintenance equipment, pool chairs, and the like. So there's a significant amount of storage at the ground floor that's accessible by large doors for our storage in the off-season. I think we just talked about, well, there'll be a gate and security posts, and I think we're going to come back to you, Mr. Chairman. I think that what's in our best interest to be able to answer all the questions regarding the gates, since I'm quite surprised that it's become such an issue, but notwithstanding, we're very respectful of your questions and your experience with gates in your own community. What I'd like to do is have our civil engineer come back with a more detailed blow-up of exactly what we're proposing, and then we'll walk you through the operations and be happy to answer any questions, as Mr. DeQuillo had and others may have regarding concerns over queuing, concerns over access. Since we're going to be carrying this hearing forward to a later date, I think we're best served to blow up that Main Street entrance for you to try and satisfy all the commissioners' concerns. Rob's memo asked with regard to sidewalks and crosswalks, will they be ADA compliant? And our response was all new sidewalks and crosswalks have been designed to be ADA compliant. The only location that there is no ADA compliance is where our access drive exceeds 5%, and it's the southerly access drive from the mall, and simply the topography, but there are accessible routes throughout the project that are ADA compliant. Rob indicated that EMS may ask for an on-site defibrillator. I can tell you that in all of our community rooms in our pool area, I do believe the Connecticut Health Code is going to require us to have a defibrillator. We do so regardless in our community center and out by the pool. Rob asked if parking spaces would be designated for visitors and for residents, and our response was the only spaces that will be designated resident spaces are those garage spaces rented by the individual tenants, and those spaces directly in front of those garages, which are reserved for that tenant that rents the garage, since it acts like a driveway in a single-family home or a townhome. So while I think our architect did a wonderful job describing it, I think it is important that everyone recognizes that what sets us apart from other communities here in Trumbull are these individual garages. So it affords our residents an opportunity on a first-come, first-served basis to rent an individual garage and have an opportunity to enter the building at the ground floor level without ever having to go back out. And it's really a wonderful transition for an empty nester who has been used to storage in a garage, used to parking at least one of their cars in the garage, and then having that space directly behind the garage to reserve for them, of course, because it's in front of their garage, to park their second vehicle should they have one. And that's exactly how those function. They act like private driveways. Rob questioned where snow would be stored. And BL responded to that one, BL Companies, John Schmitz, and indicated that our perimeter and interior landscape areas will be used for our snow storage, as they generally are in the maintenance of all of our communities. And we do that so that as snow melts and any pollutants that may be in the snow, that becomes part of our stormwater management system, which of course provides for water quality. And those pollutants can be captured and ultimately enter into our stormwater quality basins. Question was raised. Yes, of course.
You'll be storing the snow within your property?
That's correct. And I will tell you it's only fair to suggest that in instances of a blizzard, in excess of usually 12 to 18 inches of snow, we do employ landscapers that have to off-site, take that snow off-site and dispose of
So
it.
that's
That's
a
correct.
commitment.
That is a commitment, and we'd be willing to certainly put that as a
Okay.
condition of our approval, that any, snow that exceeds our ability to store it in the landscape areas along the perimeter and in our islands, which would be an excessive snow, would be offloaded and taken off-site by maintenance personnel. Question was raised about whether it be a generator in the clubhouse, and the answer is yes. We provide that for the comfort of our residents. Obviously providing generators in each of the individual buildings because we provide what we call condominium style finishes. So these are not master boilers. They're not master heating and cooling. They're individually climate controlled units, which is, consistent with one might expect from a single family home or a condominium. You can't put a generator on each individual unit. So should we have a superstorm Sandy where there's a prolonged period of power outage, it would certainly be up to your local emergency management as to whether the buildings can be occupied. Life safety, of course, equipment only has the ability with batteries to last so long, but there would be, for the comfort of the residents, the ability to, let's say, have a cooling center for our residents, which I know is important to staff to make sure that we had that. The ability to charge cell phones, to gather, would be in the clubhouse, and we would have a generator that would allow that clubhouse to be fully functional. Next question was, is there a security key card access required to get into each building? Will surveillance cameras be on site? The answer is yes to both, as I briefly described earlier. We set up a series of surveillance cameras that are monitored on site. That's for certainly our comfort and our safety of our residents, and that's a community that, whether it's located next to a mall or a more rural location or an urban location, we find that it gives people a comfort level. And each of our buildings, as I described earlier, will be access controlled at the lobbies. So there will be a master control. You'll be able to enter the foyer of the building, and then there will be an access control system where you'll be able to buzz up to a resident. There'll be a color monitor, both at the ground level in each individual apartment. And those monitors, then you can see who's there for you, and then you can invite your guest into the apartment or delivery or whatever it may be. Rob had asked us, since our architectural plans simply in error did not show the layouts for the 1 and 2 bedrooms. That's now part of our application, and we've submitted it. It was part of the PowerPoint presentation today. So we showed our standard 1 bedroom, our standard interior 2 bedroom, and our slightly larger corner 2 bedroom, all 3 of which meet the zone amendment, which requires units between, I believe, approximately 800 square feet and 1,400 square feet. All of our units will be between 800 and 1,400 square feet. Question was raised about, will lighting around the grounds be on all night? And we indicated in our response that lighting will be set on a night lighting circuit after 11 p.m., approximately 11 p.m., at which time security lighting on the building will remain on. But generally every second or third light in our parking lots will go dim. So there'll always be lighting available 24/7 for those that are traversing the site, but it'll be at a much lower illumination. Rob asked about bike rack locations. We indicated once again that we're going to have bike storage in the basements of each of our buildings in those storage rooms. Either a resident, if they rent a storage closet, could keep their bikes in their own storage closet, but we'll have a general storage room with bike racks in them as well. While we did not show them on the site plan, we certainly are prepared to put a bike rack or 2 near the clubhouse, while I doubt, though, that anyone would really be biking internally on the site because the buildings are really close together and are set in that, as I've described, as a town center environment where really it's more pedestrian access than anything else. But we'd have an exterior bike rack as well at the pool area. Will pets be allowed was a question that was asked. The answer is yes. We have a very detailed pet policy that's set forth in our regulations up front. So if someone has a pet, we generally allow no more than 2. We don't allow certain breeds of dogs that have in the past been, in our experience, troublesome to us. And we do have a weight limitation on those pets, dogs and cats. So we do have a pet policy, and we find that many of our residents are very happy to be living in a pet-friendly community. Will there be lighting around the clubhouse and pool area? Lighting showed very little. We said the patio area will have security and access lighting. Nighttime swimming is prohibited. Question was asked, will lighting be full cutoff And as John Schmitz indicated from BL Companies, yes, our complete site plan sheet LP-1 includes a detail of a typical full cutoff, dark sky compliant LED fixture that we'll be using throughout the community. Next question, will any fill be removed or taken out for this development? Fill being excess dirt in connection with construction. And our response was there is a modest amount of fill which will be removed from the site during construction, but it's primarily a balanced site. I think we discussed earlier the school bus stop, and I too recall Commissioner Corey's concerns 2 years ago. And one of the first things that we did was reach out and then reiterated, and reconfirmed that commitment. And I wanted to make it clear that it was presented to us that all 3 levels of schooling in the public school system in Trumbull currently stop on Main Street. They're stopping going northbound and southbound to accommodate the children that live Bonneview and other streets in the area. And they made it very clear to us, they had no concerns about stopping at all 3 levels as the need requires in front of our development in a proper place to be determined to accommodate any children that may be living in the community.
Excuse me?
Yes, of course.
There's also a bus stop. That means, to me, Greater Bridgeport Transit bus stop.
Are you, I'm sorry, was that a question, or are you saying there is a bus stop?
No, is there a bus stop?
Directly in front of the community? I don't believe that
That's the
there
question
currently
here,
is.
too.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, is there a school bus or bus stop?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I was
And that's the
missing.
Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority.
Yeah,
bus stop.
I will be honest, I have not been in touch with the local bus, public transportation. We could certainly come back to you at our next meeting to determine whether
They have a
I
whole
do
section
not
down
believe-
inside the mall, so.
Yeah, I do not believe that there's
The problem
currently
there
a
is,
stop.
Mr. Chairman, is there's no sidewalk to get there.
What do you mean? In the
You
mall?
walk down to this ring, and the sidewalk stops. So now you got to walk in the street to get to that bus stop.
No,
And I don't expect senior citizens to be walking in the street.
With all due respect, when we come back with our blow up, and we didn't get a real opportunity to show you that blow up because we couldn't blow it up, we have a direct connection to the existing sidewalk network that exists at the mall today. We will be tying the sidewalk in to the existing sidewalk network that exists directly adjacent to the north side of Lord and Taylor. That's where we're showing our sidewalks. So there will be full connectivity to the mall sidewalk
No, I
system.
understand that.
Out to the bus stop.
That is on the northern side of the ring.
Right.
And it's about 0.3 miles, 0.4 miles away.
Right. So I assume that patrons of the mall are walking and employees of the mall are walking to that bus stop safely
You're walking through
today.
the parking lot.
Okay.
From Macy's, isn't it?
What we'll do so that we're not
in a
debating
nutshell,
that here today.
in a nutshell, you want to know what access, if any, there is for people without mobility or their own transportation to use
Exactly.
public transportation.
What
That's
I'll-
the question for next time.
That's
Let's
correct.
go
What
on.
I'd be happy to do is show a blow up, and we'll
By
try
the way,
and
what is your name?
tone in Scott Loventhal.
Your first name?
Scott.
Scott.
Yes, SCOTT.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Once again, I think I answered the next question is regarding maintenance equipment, where it'll be stored. Will it be stored on site or brought inside? And I indicated that we do have maintenance storage rooms located on the ground floor of several of our buildings. There's only a few left, so bear with me. There was a discussion on lighting, and I think that we're probably best served. While I can provide you with our answer. This was lighting connecting the mall to the lighting from the walkway to the mall starts at a 3-foot candle and then drops to a 0.1-foot candle at the crosswalks. And the question was raised about please show the crosswalks to the curb and the entrance to the mall. And our response was the site lighting plan depicts on-site lighting. It does not include lighting photometrics on the mall property, since obviously we didn't redesign that. If additional lighting is required, once that's taken into account, the applicant will supplement with pedestrian light bollards. So it was anticipated that we would be providing enhancement to the lighting at the foot level bollards along the sidewalk. That's the connectivity, which we're going to show you a blow up of in greater detail at our next meeting.
Okay.
The next question was vinyl fence should be shown instead of simply chain link on our dumpsters. And my response was, Rob, while I appreciate you asking us to add vinyl, my expectation is while the standard detail that BL showed, because these dumpster locations are on perimeters of parking, we're going to build them out of masonry. Because once again, we build them for the future. We know that the chain link and the vinyl doesn't last in these developments. And we've been building them 3 walls masonry, and then we usually are doing a plank fence or a vinyl coated and vinyl slat chain link on the front. And it provides for much better long-term maintenance of rubbish areas. Will the public have access to the facilities? Non-residents, Rob was questioning, and as I answered earlier, no, the facilities will be available to community residents and their guests only. Asked about phasing of the development, and I gave a very general answer in that I intend to construct the community in a single phase, but of course not all 5 buildings will go up at the same time. So we anticipate putting all of the site work in for the site, having all of our access points installed at the same time. And then from a sequencing perspective, we're going to start with building 4, which includes our community room and our clubhouse and our pool, because that's certainly a marketing enhancement to us, and it's the center of the site. And that'll be followed by buildings 5, 3, 2, and 1. And then, of course, that sequencing may slightly change based on, construction scheduling, but that's a general sequencing expected. And last, there was a question about maple trees may need to be changed out for another species. And as Wayne indicated earlier, our landscape architect, we're certainly open to discussions with your landscape professionals regarding any species that they find that they'd like to swap out. And that concludes at least the questions that were asked by Rob. And are there any questions?
We're getting to the point. Let's, what I'd like to do is get questions, and then you can do your swan song after that, all right? So, commissioners, what I'd like to ask of you is something that we've never done in this fashion. Everybody gets a chance to ask their questions. So I'm going to ask each of the commissioners and staff as well, actually, if you have a specific question or a question on a topic, please mention it now so they can write it down and they can come back to us with answers. And if they have them previous to the meeting, I would ask that they send them in, and then staff would email us the answers so we have time to digest them rather than, ta-da, here they are, 4 or 5 weeks from now. So, Commissioner D'Aquila, I'm sure you have a couple questions pre-written.
Judge, one question, Attorney Nuff. The east-west road ends up in what appears to be steps. Is that really steps going down to the ringing road?
No, that's merely the pedestrian connection that leads down to the crosswalk, but obviously cars cannot make that maneuver, so.
How does a person get down from the end of that east-west road down to the bottom of that slope?
We'd be happy to explain. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer now. Or...
Yeah, we're at the point where that's going to be your question for him to do next time.
That's my question.
So that's, okay. Are there any other?
Is this access ADA compatible?
Okay. He'll give a speech about that. I know you have a loose leaf there. I'm wondering if you have any other questions that are prepared or subjects you'd like more information on. Now's the time to let them know so he can go off.
When parents will bring their children to the bus stop on the main street, the way they do it is they get into their car and they drive. Now, we have all this parallel parking, and there's no place to park. Something has to give. And that's why I had recommended you should reconsider getting rid of some of the parallel parking so these parents can bring their child there, wait for the bus, and then go back home. Okay. There's no room.
Okay. We don't want to sell our questions now.
Okay,
We just want to.
You're right.
Just the question. That's the only question you have. Seriously.
Am I? Why can't we just replace all the parallel parking with fire lanes?
Okay. Parallel parking again. Anything else?
Okay. 1 second. Not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Silver.
I don't know that I have anything, this is Commissioner Silver, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if I have anything that requires anybody to go back and do any research. It's just some small things to clarify.
Just throw the subjects out and they'll be part of a list.
Okay, so, and some of them were answered. I think, from what I can infer, who gets garages? They have to be rented, right? How do you protect the space in front of the garage from some other person, a visitor parking in front of it? Causes like a nightmare for whoever's in the garage. That's one thing I wanted to know. You mentioned the lighting on the buildings at night would stay on.
Linda, you're getting all these, right? You're getting all these questions, right?
You mentioned the lighting on the buildings at night will stay on. Will they be shining into people's windows where they can't sleep?
Right.
I think I said from the plans, I think I saw sidewalks reaching all points. So my question is, can you walk the length and the north to south, east to west in the apartment complex and all the time on sidewalks? I think I saw the plan that it did have that. Let's see, just a couple of other ones. Will Evergreens provide sound buffering from Main Street, from the mall access road, from the Merritt Parkway? And is there, especially on the mall side, is there enough buffering of landscaping and buffering from the cars that zip up and down that mall access road? I didn't see. I think on the plan it didn't really show very much. So I'd want to know that. And I guess the main thing is because there's a slope going from the apartment complex down to the mall parking area. I wonder if, and I guess you're going to explain the sidewalk better. Yep. The walkway, but I wonder if it makes sense to try and have the walkway go over the ring road, because.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry.
Have the walkway from the apartment complex to the mall go over the ring road, because I'm telling you, I don't think flashing lights or anything is going to be enough. I mean, if you think of worst case scenario, like on Route 111, every time you cross the Valley Trail on Route 111, you take your life into your hands, literally, because somebody's daydreaming, they're on their cell phone while they're driving, they're going 60 miles an hour, and you just get lucky and you make it across. And I think you have to apply that same principle to this on that mall ring road. It's the same thing or worse. So it's just something to think about. And I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but flashing lights is not going to be enough. I mean, and especially considering this is a community that's supposed to combine lifestyle amenities. You know, somebody can go to that grocery store and Target from this apartment complex, which is cool. But if you have to cross that ring road with people like rushing to get home or whatever, it's just going to be, people are going to get in their cars and drive out to Main Street and then over to the mall access road, which completely, neutralizes the whole point of this connectivity. So that's all I have.
Yeah,
Commissioner Corey.
I have two things. I know we talked about this a couple times and you think we resolved it, but you talk about a bus stop at Bonneview. There might be the issue that was presented when we discussed this is when you have Avalon kids, there's so many in one place, the bus could stop for up to 20 minutes. So what I would like to know at the next meeting is how many students get on and off at these other locations on Main Street and how this compares to it, number one. And the other question I have is, have you done any consideration for, we don't have a lot of experience with, as you said, we just started apartments in Trumbull, and you said, so we don't have a lot of experience with them, and I'm wondering if you had done any consideration for COVID-19, like how are the elevators still adequate when you have only 2 people in an elevator? How have you considered that at all in this, or just treated it as business as usual?
Okay. They can answer that when they come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions?
Not at this time, no.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Prush?
Actually, most of the.
You pull the microphone up, Dave?
Is it,
They should be on.
is it on?
Yeah, it should be. Pull it close.
The questions I did have mostly been answered in the presentation. But one thing, the person we haven't heard from, and I was wondering if we were going to hear from Mr. Gizdowski.
Yeah, Stan.
Stan, that's
Much
a lot
easier, yes.
easier. And the reason is the things that he talks about, endorsements from the EMS, the police, the fire department, and the schools. These are things that the public appears to be the most concerned with. So I was just wondering if we were
No,
going to hear from him.
he's actually available tonight. I mean, he lives in Connecticut, but just because of COVID, I think he's probably.
Yeah, I'm not trying to prolong it.
No. I
That
understood,
was just-
and we thought that you had the
those were
report,
only other-
and Scott, summarized it, of course.
And particularly because of the in his report that said that no additional expense due to EMS and no additional expense to the fire departments, no impact. The police did not indicate any impact, but something was put in anyway, and some miscellaneous things. Those were things that I had written that hadn't been addressed tonight, so just bringing that up. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cinto, do you have any questions for them to research for next time? Don? No? Okay. Mr. Mauer?
I would just like my comment letter answered.
Understood. We are preparing a response. As I indicated at the very beginning, most of the comments that you made, we have no issue with. A really sort of silly minor one with regard to the swimming pool water, but I mean, we can talk to you about that. But other than that, we have no fundamental concerns or issues with any of your comments.
Just like the other questions, any staff answers so we can have them back before the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Mr. Lebrandi, new questions?
Yeah, I just, maintenance of the sidewalk,
Our sidewalks will be us, obviously. So.
because I believe they're on the state road.
We'll answer next time.
Okay. And just seeing the elevation of the connection with the mall.
Got it. Will do.
Great. And just to double check with Commissioner DeQuila's question about the connection between this development and the bus stop. I think that's a common question.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay. A couple things we went over, I'll just make sure we were going to go over in depth the queuing and
Hey, don't
maybe the
forget me.
relocation or not, whatever you're going to say compared to whatever decisions we'll make. Any input on the turnaround, the U-turn, which may or may not happen, and we know what's probably going to happen. I would like a little more detail. I heard it already, but on walkability. So I'll tell you. Excuse me? Oh, Larry. Larry, geez. I'll come right to you, Larry, in 1 second.
Yeah, okay.
Explore walkability, because I can tell you at 5 o'clock where I am, there's 360, I think, units, 340, 360, whatever they are. There are at least 60 or 70 people walking on the interior at 5 o'clock every day. They're in the morning, in the afternoon as well. But after dinner, so what's your walkability? And I heard some questions about connecting a little better the walkway, then, if you built the bridge, then how would people who couldn't get up the bridge get there, things like that. But one of the things I would talk about is not just the walkability, but the bike question. Because if I'm the mall, I'm thinking you're going to have a lot more outdoor dining. And if you have 500 or 600 people right up there that can jump on their bike and drive down the hill and pull into the bike rack and sit and eat or have something or run in and run out, you may have many more people biking to the mall from this development than walking. So that may be something that you all want to incorporate as we move forward. And
Yeah, I mean, for my purposes, I think people who are visiting the mall, who are living here, they're going to choose their method of transportation based upon the purpose of their visit. If you're going over to Cheesecake, you're probably going to walk. If you're going to Target to buy groceries, you're probably going to take your car.
Right.
Because, you know, people don't like carrying their groceries in from the car, much less carrying them across a couple hundred yards. You know, might they bike? Do you really want to bike after dinner? I don't know. I suppose there might be a few people, but I think it's going to be dependent upon the purpose of your visit, your mode of transportation.
Right. I mean, if you want to rule out people having that ability, go, I'm just.
No. I mean, certainly, you know, I think we would encourage any method of transportation, you know, other than cars. So.
Okay. So Commissioner LeConte from home on Zoom.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes. Do you have any questions to add to the list for next time?
Yeah, for the project manager, I didn't see the fire, I couldn't see any of the fire lanes that were supposed to be marked out on any of the maps. And number two, I may have missed it, but the pool is only going to be for you can't bring a guest to the pool? Did I hear that correctly?
It is only for the residents and their guests.
And their guests, okay, fine. And the biggest thing is with the no generators in any of the buildings, and a 4-story building made for or designed for people over 50 or 60 years old, retirees like myself. If I have electricity going out and I live on the 4th floor, how do I get down to the 1st floor? And you wouldn't have to worry about your heat or electricity, but you need lights in the hallways, and you should have at least enough juice on a generator to run at least one elevator to get everybody down. All right, and that's about it, right, for this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Mr. Silver, another question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I had two quick ones. 500 parking spaces for 260 units. Are we comfortable, and this might be more for the planner, are we comfortable that that's going to be enough spaces? And again, I think the chairman doesn't want these answers now, so just I'm putting that out there. And the other,
so then I would say on that question, is there any place to grow if there was a request?
Gotcha. Yep.
Go ahead.
And the last one that I had that I neglected to ask was, what does this whole mall site look like in 5 years? So you have an apartment complex. It looks like a quality complex going in, but it's not speaking to what's going on with malls in America, which is a big issue. And so I want to, you know, we're looking at more apartments.
There's an article literally every day in different media outlets. I mean, it is overwhelming, the number of articles about malls. And as we said from the beginning, this is where we started this conversation 2 years ago, that without this sort of mixed use, you know, development, that the future of the mall is only, you know, I mean, frankly, very pessimistic. This is designed to help infuse vitality into the mall. You know, mixed use and entertainment and things that you can't order online, like experiences and dining out. That's the future of the mall. I mean, certainly URW and Westfield, you know, has its challenges as any mall owner does. And this is an effort to, you know, this is the first step in that process to stem that tide.
Thank you, exactly. And I just want to, again, not to be answered now, if you don't choose to, but what are steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5? Because, you know, with these anchor stores, I read today that something like 50% of these anchor stores are going to be out of business by next year. So it's there's a bigger picture issue here. So
I would agree with you, and I don't know that anyone has a crystal ball that can say what it's going to be in 5 years, but I think this is a step demonstrating URW and K&K's commitment to the site and to the town.
Thank you.
So if you have any quick tie-up, because we're going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting and leave this application.
I very much appreciate, Mr. Chairman, the fact that you had everyone get all their questions out, because I think it's going to be for a much more efficient meeting next time. But I don't have any other closing remarks, but we will, of course, when we get to the end of the hearing.
Okay, so before I make the motion, I just want to reiterate and thank Trumbull High and the Board of Ed and all the technical folks and the IT from the town and Bill Chin for all the work making this happen. This is a first, ladies and gentlemen, where we had a live meeting and Zoom at the same time. This took a lot of work. Thank you, Mr. Chin. Well done. So at this time, and also from the public, I'm told there was probably 100 people between Zoom and watching on community television live. So there was some interest in the meeting, and there may be some still now. And this will be out there for everybody to continue to watch between the next month. So I will take a motion to continue the public hearing to our next.
Mr. Chairman, one quick question. So when you make the motion, I assume that we're coming back, same venue, same format, same everything?
I am going to do the date, and that's it for now.
Okay.
Because if a vaccine is announced tomorrow, we're all going to be back in town hall.
I don't think it's going to be happening by August, but.
All the practicalities that made today happen have to begin again tomorrow for August 19th. Whether it's here, another room, another location, that process begins. But the day and time, so I will make a motion to continue the public hearing to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is August 19th, 2020. And
Is that the third Wednesday?
Yeah.
August 19th?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you said the 18th.
No, on August 19th.
Okay, good.
August 19th.
Got it.
And are we all in favor of changing the time to 7 o'clock instead of 7:30? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so it will be at 7 o'clock.
Yep.
As this one instead of 7:30. And the location and/or video teleconferencing information will be announced as soon as we have it confirmed.
Yeah,
I will take that motion. Mr. Mr. Corey makes the motion. Mr. D'Aquila, second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Wear your masks on the way out.